The Dam clan settled in the Shaanxi province, not far from the southern part of the Taihang Mountains, and was quite powerful. For many generations, the Dam clan family managed 5 large entertainment houses, where visitors indulged in various pleasures. This business helped the clan accumulate enough wealth to gain favor with the authorities and generously bestow them with bribes. However, it was not only wealth that brought fame to the Dan family. Special secret ingredients obtained in the pleasure houses allowed them to create unique beverages. Both the liqueur and the elixir excellently restored vitality, contributed to the increase of inner energy, but obtaining them was challenging, and the composition itself was kept in strict secrecy. Even the taste of the beverages was addictive, so people were willing to pay enormous amounts to try these miraculous concoctions again. The head of the Dam family, Chae Song, offered this product to high-ranking officials, establishing not only business partnerships but also friendly relationships with them. All of this was necessary for the man to fulfill his ambitions and become a substantial, significant figure in society. Chae Song and his associates gathered in a vast hall. The men dined and discussed the possibility of taking over Murim. The clan now had enough power to execute this plan, and moreover, all the gold that once belonged to the Yang family now belonged to the Dam clan. The head of the clan knew that there was a lot of gold in the Yang mines, and now subduing the arrogant Murim was only a matter of time. Once, the Yang and Dan families entered into a contractual marriage, marrying their children, and now this decision seemed brilliant to the man. Distracted from his thoughts, Chae Song told his associates not to rush because it was necessary first to eliminate the Yang family, which had become useless to the clan. Along with the Yang family, the man planned to bury Dam Hwa Yun, who had become a pawn in his ambitious plans. Suddenly, the doors flew off their hinges, and the guard standing at the entrance collapsed to the floor, right at the feet of the dining people. The men were surprised by this sudden intrusion. No one dared to interrupt their meal, especially in such a bold manner. However, the guards couldn't stop the intruder. They did try, and it was evident from the condition of the warriors lying on the floor of the hall. In the doorway appeared the tall figure of a man. He was very angry, as indicated by his tightly clenched fists. The men jumped up, expressing their outrage that the stranger dared to disturb the family gathering. The boldest ones rushed forward, drawing their swords and pointing them at the intruder. Approaching the men, many recognized the unfamiliar face as Yeon Hwi Chon, the young man Dam Hwa Yun had been married to. One of the men decided to capitalize on the element of surprise by attacking the young man, but the hero was prepared for such a turn of events. The young man skillfully dodged the attack of the warrior, who considered Hwi Chon's intrusion into the hall where the Dam family had gathered to be outrageous. Defending himself, the young man struck the attacking man in the face with his fist, breaking his nose. With the next blow, he pushed the warrior away, and the man flew right onto the table of the head of the Dam clan. The blow was not intentional, but Hwi Chon considered it fortunate and smirked to himself. He was ready to confront the clan leader. Meanwhile, Chae Song was furious. Some youngster from the Yang family dared to challenge him, the most outstanding and significant figure of the era. The man decided to use his signature move, the Divine Fist, to defeat the rogue, but the young man skillfully dodged it. The hero not only avoided the blow but also managed to grab the clan leader by his clothes, giving him a good shake. The man didn't expect to find so much strength in the ordinary young lad. He never considered him an equal and never even saw him as a potential adversary. Pushing off the ground and guided solely by his inner energy, Hwi Chon leaped high above the floor. The hero was ready to deliver his signature move, the 1,000-pound kick, to his opponent. Taking careful aim, the young man's foot forcefully pressed the old man to the floor, sending dust and splinters flying across the hall. The close associates of the clan leader were shocked by what was happening in the hall. They stood ready, not intervening in the duel. occasionally shouting words of support to their leader and expressing a wish for the intruder's demise. When the men saw Chae Song's defeat, they tried to surround the young man from all sides. Such audacity could not go unpunished. Hwi Chon understood the warrior's plan, and with a swift push of his foot from the floor, he soared upward. The men were puzzled. They had already seen the hero perform this trick, but it seemed as if the young man had simply vanished. At that moment, the guards regained their senses, and the warriors hurled their throwing axes at the young man. It took great effort for Hwi Chon to dodge the deadly weapons approaching him at an incredible speed. Both axes, thrown at the hero, firmly embedded themselves into the carved beam adorning the ceiling of the hall. However, Hwi Chon was unharmed, and this caused bewilderment on the faces of the guards. Few could evade even one axe, and now there were two. It seemed like the young man froze under the ceiling, but in reality, he was preparing to deliver a demonic whirlwind strike. The hero's attack was powerful. Even knowing the imminent threat, the opponents didn't manage to put up a block. Hwi Chon quickly incapacitated one of the guards. The man fell to the floor with a crash, and the hero soared above him again, preparing for the next attack. The second guard called for help, urging all the warriors nearby to come to his aid. Hwi Chon heard the man's words and only smiled. These fools didn't know what they were doing. Defeating them all with one strike would be much easier than chasing after each one. A loud whistle sounded. It was a signal to the members of the Dan clan to gather urgently. In the distance, the sound of hundreds of footsteps could be heard, and the soldiers instantly reacted to the whistle. All the warriors who were on the premises rushed toward the building from which the sounds of the struggle emanated. The soldiers assessed the situation and surrounded the associates, protecting the men from the dangerous stranger. Hwi Chon watched with a smirk as the events unfolded in the hall. It was advantageous for him that they were so busy and actively grouped together in one place. Gathering his strength, the hero closed his eyes, focused energy in his hands, and let out a loud exhale. Swiftly, he began to pound the wall behind him with his fists. His blows were so powerful that cracks started appearing in the supports. The men were surprised by this turn of events. They had intended to fight the guy, but he turned his back to them and battled with the wall. Suddenly, a golden light shone in the center of Hwi Chon's palm. The light was so bright that it blinded those around him, and the soldiers squinted their eyes. Without wasting time and putting all his strength into it, the guy struck the largest column with his glowing palm. The pillar cracked, and the men standing behind the hero exclaimed in astonishment. Was he using his inner energy to destroy the column? Meanwhile, members of the ruling Dan clan ordered the soldiers not to pay attention to the guy's actions but to act, as he was alone, and they were a whole crowd. Of course, the hero heard the whispers behind him and the orders, but he needed the column to deal with the incoming crowd of warriors. He hurled the column at the men, and they scattered in different directions. Some were hit, while others managed to dodge. Hwi Chon intensified the pressure and repelled the next squad of warriors with a wooden log. The men were not prepared for the fact that the guy would start attacking using makeshift means. The battle continued, and neither side wanted to give in. It was astonishing how one person repeatedly defeated squads of professionally trained warriors. The hero did not pause for a minute. He destroyed his enemies, giving his best and showing no mercy. Soldiers fell and cried out in despair. They were outraged. Everyone wondered where this guy got such powerful strength and how he became so mighty. Indeed, now just looking at Hwi Chon was terrifying. The guy seemed to be driven mad by the force that erupted onto his opponents in powerful waves. Realizing that the opponent was stronger than a whole army, the warriors decided to retreat. It was the only way to survive, as they were shamefully losing this battle. However, the hero was not inclined to let anyone leave the battlefield and launched the wooden log after the men. The powerful projectile whizzed through the entrance arch, and the soldiers looked up in fear, scrambling to hide as quickly as possible. However, not everyone could avoid colliding with the column. With a crash, the log fell on the street, causing damage to the fleeing men. Hwi Chon was furious. He wanted to deal with these traitors once and for all, and they turned out to be so cowardly that they couldn't even respond adequately to the attack. The hero broke another wooden log and again launched it after the retreating soldiers from the battlefield. In the midst of what was once a spacious hall, there was no free space left. Everywhere, there were splinters and piles of stones. Most of the opponents were defeated. One warrior survived, trembling with fear. He got up from the floor and looked around. The sight was incredible. The man couldn't believe that all this destruction could be done by just one guy, without assistance, relying solely on his inner energy. From the dust cloud emerged the figure of Hwi Chon. The hero was more composed now, but his determination was just as strong as when he first stepped into this hall. The soldier shrank in fear. He feared for his life because the stranger spared no one. Fighting him now, one-on-one, was pointless. Any actions of the warrior were doomed to fail. Drenched in sweat, the man managed to utter the question that interested everyone who had been here before. Who is this guy? Hwi Chon stopped. The soldier's question did not surprise him. The hero not only saw but also felt the fear emanating from the man. The hero turned around and answered the man's question. He is a messenger who came to condemn and punish the dishonorable deeds of the Dan clan. The village was shrouded in smoke, and the fire spread from one house to another, consuming everything in its path. People were rushing out of their shelters, trying to save themselves and their most valuable possessions. However, sword-wielding bandits awaited them on the streets. Through the flames, a man made his way to an elderly man who couldn't comprehend what was happening in the village or where the fire originated. The village elder explained to the approaching man that bandits had attacked, and upon hearing these words, Yeon Hwi Chon literally froze. The elder, who was also the man's father, urged him. The old man wanted their family to survive, and Hwi's son had to save them while his father dealt with the bandits. The old man hurried his son because he still couldn't believe the reality of what was happening. Hwi Chon gathered his family and looked back. He understood that the chance to escape from this ruin would cost his father's life. Making their way through the burning settlement with his loved ones, the hero wanted to help his friends and neighbors, guiding them along with his family. In a moment, the man heard a familiar scream and looked back. It seemed like the sound was very close, but due to the smoke, it was impossible to discern anything. The hero told his family to move forward without him, startling his young wife who didn't want to leave him here. However, Hwi Chon was determined. They had already overcome dangerous stretches of the journey together, and he decided to go back to help others. The man followed the voice that unmistakably belonged to his younger sister, Shay. Through the smoke, the hero saw Shay sitting on the ground, a man with a sword standing over her, his face hidden behind a mask. Hwi Chon was genuinely enraged. Shay was still a child. He shouted at the bandit, ordering him to stop. Without hesitation, he attacked the man, putting all his strength and power into the blow. However, the scoundrel managed to evade. Moreover, he counterattacked, and the strength of the warriors was clearly unequal. The hero couldn't deflect the blow or maintain his defense. Hwi Chon dropped his sword, fell to the ground, and flew several more meters. The bandit's strike was so powerful. He was shocked by the man's strength. Externally, the physical capabilities of the man didn't differ much from Hwi Chon's own. The man shouted, demanding answers about who these marauders were and what they wanted. The stranger disdainfully removed his mask and looked at the hero. It was Dam Shin-ho. Next to him appeared a woman with a scar on her face, also familiar to the hero, Dam Baiyun. Hwi Chon was angered. He knew these people well and couldn't understand why they had attacked the peaceful residents of the Yun settlement. Shay also recognized the attackers. She had somehow acquired a knife and rushed at the traitor Shin-ho. However, the girl was not cautious. The warrior noticed her, swiftly turned 180 degrees, and struck first. In Hwi Chon's eyes, the traitor Dam Shin-ho turned into a murderer, and his sister died without avenging the man for the attack on the village. Now this mission was sacred for the hero. Every member of the Dam clan became a blood enemy for Hwi Chon, deserving nothing but death. Hwi Chon attempted to attack the enemy, but compared to the warrior, he was truly weak. Even the virtuoso swordsmanship couldn't save the hero from defeat in this confrontation, especially since the traitor Ho's sister intervened in the battle. Baiyun simply thrust her weapon forward and made a lunge toward our hero. That was enough for the sword to fatally wound Hwi Chon. The hero fell to the ground. He could no longer move, resist his enemies, or avenge the betrayal of the Dam family. His consciousness was fading. The last thing Hwi Chon saw was the scar on the killer's face and the disdainful smirk of Baiyun. It was the end. Behind, frozen in horror, stood the hero's wife. She didn't understand what struck her more, the death of her husband or the fact that the clan to which she belonged had caused this cruel fire. At the entrance of the cave sat a young man, lost and staring into the distance with vacant eyes. In an instant, as if some veil had lifted from him, the young man jumped to his feet, carefully examining himself. He is 27 years old, and he distinctly remembers coming to this cave in the hope of waiting out a heavy rain. Perhaps he dozed off, and all these sensations were from a dream. In the hero's mind, the silhouettes of Shin-ho and Baiyun from the Dam clan flashed. These people stirred a storm of emotions within the young man. They were the ones who destroyed the family and wife of Hwi Chon, attacked, set fire to, and exterminated the settlement, the heads of Yun. The more the hero thought, the more he realized that this bad dream was his reality. Now the Dam clan is the archenemy of the Yun family. Thunder rumbled, and immediately after it, very close to the cave, a flash of lightning flickered. Hwi Chon realized that he was dreaming. The hero simply went back 15 years. Baiyun and Shin-ho from the Dam clan were not just brother and sister, they were twins, and the Shaanxi territory was their empire. In the clan from an early age, they were called nothing less than Emperor and Empress. The little ones knew no limits, and very often they troubled their nannies with their bad behavior. The children inherited the cruelty and ruthlessness of their father, Dam Chai's son, and the first manifestations of these qualities occurred when they were 5 years old. The kids came up with a finger game and started collecting the fingers of people from the nearest village. Many lost their limbs at that time. At the age of 15, the Dam twins practiced martial arts, and they wanted to create their own organization. The method they chose for their gang was based on ancient scriptures, and the gang itself consisted of small children resembling gnomes. They named the organization So Sarwai, and the skills of those trained here were incredibly high. Anyone who dared to oppose the members of the organization died without hesitation. Rumors about the gang circulated widely, but few could confirm the truth. The gates of the building where the head and council of the Dam clan usually gathered were completely smashed. Chaos and debris surrounded the area. When the Dam twins entered, they were greeted by a horrifying sight. The hall was completely destroyed, and soldiers lay on the floor amid the rubble. The young men were surprised and did not understand who caused such significant destruction, who had the strength and courage for it. Several warriors tried to get their friend out of the dangerous zone and saw approaching lords. They did not expect to meet the damn twins here and were very excited. Shin Ho shouted as loudly as he could, asking who had done such a thing to the hall and the damn family members. The man was furious and wanted to avenge the audacity of someone who dared to step on their territory. One of the warriors, shaking and stuttering, began to tell how Yeon Hwi Chon broke in. He did not know what this information would cost him, but he could not hide it. The twins were surprised. They knew that Hwi Chon was the husband of Dam Hwa Yun, but they did not understand how this weakling gained the courage and audacity to do such a thing. The woman drew her sword from its sheath. She was as outraged as her brother. Bai Yun never considered Hwi Chon a worthy opponent. What's more, she was outraged that everything around was in ruins, her family suffered, and some soldiers survived. The girl decided to justly deprive them of their lives. Finishing off the useless guards who could not protect their lords and their home but managed to save their lives, Bai Yun looked displeased at her brother. He gave silent consent to further actions, and Bai Yun called her faithful assassins, who had never let down their leaders before. The woman immediately ordered to seize Yeon Hwi Chon. Most likely, he was now approaching the Yun village, and subordinates should hurry to avoid the wrath of the young mistress. At the same time, Shin Ho gritted his teeth and said that he did not understand what happened, but he would tear this wretch from the Yun family into pieces, starting with his fingers. The sun was rising to the top of the Taehan mountain range, illuminating the treetops with warm light. Hwi Chon leisurely walked along the forest road past the trees and felt someone's invisible presence. Someone was watching him. By the barely noticeable rustling and sounds, the hero assumed that it could be none other than assassins sent by the damn twins. Besides the sounds, the guy could even sense the auras of these petty bandits, which was quite useful in the current circumstances. One of the assassins whistled into a special device. It was a signal for his comrades. The leaves rustled, and bright flashes exploded one after another in the treetops. Hwi Chon looked up carefully. He had heard about the damn twins' petty bandits but had never encountered them before, especially in such circumstances. The man crouched down and touched the ground to understand how far the bandits were and how many of them there were. The result was as expected. The hero jumped, and behind him, a column of roadside dust and small stones rose. His pursuers were not one or even two people. There were many more assassins than he thought. Hwi Chon's attention was drawn again to the flashes in the treetops. He couldn't understand if there was something more significant there or if it was just a play of light and sun glare. The hero decided not to let the situation go unchecked and first deal with this. Twisting, he jumped high. When he touched the ground again, Hwi Chon barely managed to stay on his feet. Something had changed, and he noticed it only now. During the landing, the man hit a rope stretched across the road with his heel. It was very careless of him, but now it was inevitable. The rope tightened, activating the net in which the hero got caught, like a mouse in a mousetrap. The petty bandits began to whisper to each other that the foolish man had fallen into their trap. The faces of these assassins were truly eerie. Like bats, the little men descended from the tree branches down to their prey. In each assassin's sleeve was a neatly concealed sharp dagger, which each of them wanted to use. The blade of the dagger sparkled in the sun, showing the well-sharpened edges of the bandits' weapons. The little ones reached their dangerous little hands toward Hwi Chon, who was still entangled in the net. But the man wouldn't be himself if he couldn't turn such a situation to his advantage. He firmly grabbed the hand of one of the dwarfs and cut the rope of the net with his blade. When a gap appeared, the hero pushed off and soared high above the heads of the bandits. Instantly, Surprised exclamations were heard, and someone among the little ones gave the order to regroup because their opponent turned out to be free. The hero understood that these bandits were not ordinary, and he should exert a bit more effort to deal with them. He formed a simple manhwa with his fingers, concentrating his energy and channeling it to the fingertips. Changing the position of his fingers, he recreated the manhwa of infinite knowledge, accumulating more and more power that circulated within Hwi Chon's body. When the hero formed the third manhwa with his fingers, his eyes took on a golden hue, and his gaze became focused and penetrating. The man looked at the tree in front of him. At first glance, there was nothing remarkable about its trunk, it was just a tree. However, looking at it with his inner vision, Hwi Chon discerned a small dwarf figure in a brown suit trying to blend in with the surroundings. The bandit had no idea that his location had been exposed. He was very quiet and cautious, but it was already too late. The hero found them all. The tree trunks were literally covered with tiny assassin figures. Still, now their auras were radiating, and the man could clearly distinguish each of them. Hwi Chon understood that these little guys were very fast, and he couldn't catch up with each of them. So, he needed to make unconventional decisions. They wouldn't leave him in peace. In the hero's hand were small balls. He took one of them and aimed well at one of the assassins. The little stone flew towards its target, infused with Hwi Chon's power. Specks of dust flew off its smooth surface. The bandit hit by the stone turned around, his face distorted with surprise and fear. It was challenging to make out the moving object in the dwarf. The ball hit the bandit right in the forehead. He didn't have time to make a sound, just stared in astonishment and began to fall. The way the dwarf was flying did not go unnoticed by his comrades. They couldn't understand what had happened. After all, there was no equal to them in camouflage, and no one had ever managed to detect them. While the bandits watched the silent fall of one of their own, another stone flew into the head of the next one, who also failed to react in time. One by one, members of the damn twins gang fell from the trees, not understanding what was happening and how someone could see and attack them at all. Those who had not yet received their share of balls dared to launch a second attack on the man who seemed to be calmly standing below. However, Hwi Chon was prepared and skillfully dodged the attacks of the assassins, kicking up a trail of roadside dust. The hero attacked an approaching dwarf with a knee to the jaw. The little one winced in pain, and with a loud cry rolled on the ground from the impact of the unfamiliar stranger. Few were as agile as these bandits. Hwi Chon surveyed the scene and concluded that there weren't too many attackers, but many of them were very aggressively inclined. One of the dwarfs decided to attack the man from behind, but his actions did not go unnoticed by the hero. He skillfully turned around and kicked the approaching bandit with all his might. The dwarf didn't have time to react. Then Hwi Chon decided not to hold back and applied martial arts techniques to his opponents, inflicting maximum damage. An explosion echoed in the valley, and clouds of dust rose from behind the trees. Such was the power of the hero's strike. Not a single warrior from the Social Y assassin squad could escape the powerful attack that the hero utilized. The adversaries were defeated, and Hwi Chon pondered that the rumors were true. The damn twins had turned pathetic kids into deadly machines. The more the man thought about the recent battle, the more surprised he was at how cruel the damn clan members were. The twins received a message that their fighters had reached and lured the target into a trap and hurried to the agreed-upon location. However, when they saw the defeated assassins lying in the clearing, both warriors flew into a rage. Yeon was outraged by what had happened. No one had been able to defeat the trained warriors among the kids. Only the best of the best made it into the twins' gang. Suddenly, a guy jumped from a tree, and the couple stared at him in astonishment, not understanding what was happening. Hwi Chon landed right in front of the twins and disdainfully looked at his wife's relatives. The twins frowned displeasedly. They thought the man had escaped, but he confidently looked them in the eyes without fear or doubt. Shin Ho asked Chon if it was true that the clan's revenge was the work of Hwi Chon. The man confirmed and smirked, provoking the twins. Unable to contain herself, Bayun, under her own thunderous scream, drew her sword from the sheath. She couldn't tolerate the contempt with which the man spoke about the death of her loved ones and launched a powerful strike. Hwi Chon was ready for the attack and quickly gathered energy in one of the techniques familiar to him. The man erected a quite powerful shield that easily deflected Bayun's strike. Her efforts were in vain, and her anger only increased. The girl stared incredulously at Hwi Chon. She couldn't believe that this upstart could skillfully control energy and successfully repel one of her powerful strikes. Meanwhile, Shin Ho attempted to strike the man from behind, but the hero noticed him in time. Without turning around, the man parried the sword strike from his twin brother, and at that moment, the hero's palms sparkled with a golden light. This surprised Shin Ho. Such mastery was only accessible to very few. How did they not perceive the threat in this person? Shin Ho froze, mouth agape in astonishment. Seizing the momentary weakness of his opponent, Hwi Chon grabbed the twin's hand holding the sword. Without exerting much effort, the hero disarmed the opponent, further astonishing Shin Ho. However, in an instant, the twin received a powerful kick to the jaw and went flying to the ground. It's worth noting that the strike was so forceful that Shin Ho was dragged across the ground for about 10 meters before his body came to a halt. His sister rushed to help with disdain and fury. Though she was late, she had no intention of giving up. The girl aimed her sword at the opponent, but Hwi Chon stopped the blade with his bare hands. He simply grabbed the edge of the blade and wrested the weapon from Bayun's hands. The girl stared in amazement at what was happening and couldn't find words, not even curses, to respond to the man. In desperation, she began to step back slowly, tripping over a stone. She fell, and Hwi Chon mockingly asked if she had just started fearing death. Extending his hand forward, energy shimmered around his palm. He looked at Bayun and told her to remember all the souls she had lost. With these words, the man placed his hand on the girl's head, and her face was covered in vapor. The hero decided not to be merciful to her. Since Bayun showed no mercy to others, he applied a draining technique, extracting life energy from the girl's body. Gradually, her body transformed into a semblance of a human, a skeleton covered with skin. It was a horrifying sight. After a moment, Bayun collapsed to the ground. She was no longer herself. She no longer existed. The hero heard some movement behind him and became alert. He hadn't finished off all his opponents. Shin Ho was approaching the man. He was in a terrible state, but he could still stand on his feet, and he was furious. He wanted revenge for his sister. Shin Ho's clothes were torn at the seams, and tatters hung from his body, but where it ripped, his body was visible, acquiring a strange greenish hue. Right before Hwi Chon's eyes, this man was transforming into a real monster. Energy enveloped the man's body during the transformation. It was unexpected and incomprehensible. The hero witnessed such a phenomenon for the first time and couldn't believe his eyes. In front of the man stood a green monster with a human body, an animalistic grin, and huge muscles. Hwi Chon looked at his old acquaintance and asked if his current appearance was the result of taking the strange pills that Shin Ho had been consuming by the handful. It turned out that the creature was quite intelligent. At least, it replied that the Shangxi Dam pills were no ordinary tablets. These pills were intended only for direct descendants of the Dam family, who would become leaders of their clan in the future. The pills contained a concentrate of internal energy and spiritual enlightenment. To someone as unenlightened as Yeon Hwi Chon, this meant very little. Still, the man was surprised that this fool knew anything about the remarkable gifts of the Shangxi Dam. However, the green monster decided not to reveal any family secrets to the man and simply squash him like a little bug. But the hero had no intention of giving up. Even before Shinho's transformation, he considered him a monster. Now, it was just the essence of this person prevailing over his external appearance. A bird's cry echoed over the Dam clan palace. On this day, many birds flocked here, almost the entire flock. The path to the palace was strewn with soldiers trying to protect the clan leader from the invasion of this audacious relative. However, they failed. The surviving soldiers helped those who remained alive. They weren't numerous, but each person now mattered. Suddenly, two guards heard wheezing behind them. They were surprised because they had passed by these bodies several times, and none showed signs of life. The ones whose movements the warriors heard were the head of the Dam clan, the eldest of the men. He still lay motionless, but he breathed deeply and evenly. The old man opened his eyes and didn't understand what was happening. For a moment, he got lost in events and memories. Memory diligently avoided reminding him of the massacre he had recently endured. However, the warriors tried their best to bring the Dam clan leader to his senses, periodically shaking his body and asking if everything was okay with him. Chae Song came to his senses a bit and began questioning the warriors about why the twins went to hunt down this abnormal member of the Yang family alone. Looking at the dead soldiers, the man replied that they couldn't leave Hwi Chon alone. This fool doesn't even realize what havoc he caused with his actions. On the one hand, he was magnificent as a fighter, possessing martial arts skills at an unimaginable level of mastery. The old man speculated that Hwi Chon had acquired some incredible skills and was capable of much more than he had demonstrated in the hall back then. The man wanted to know all of Hwi Chon's secrets, but to do that, he needed to find the guy. He looked at his palm where those miraculous Shangxi pills lay. Chae Song tossed the pills into his mouth and chewed carefully. He decided that, in any case, the young Yang had to die for his audacity, and this time, the leader wouldn't take any risks. Perhaps they were partly to blame for what happened. The Dam family had become lax, and the entrance security was minimal, the soldiers not adequately trained. After taking the pills, the leader's strength significantly increased, and he ascended into the air, astonishing the warriors. They knew Chae Song was strong, but they had no idea it was to this extent. The leader decided it was time to make the clan the strongest in history, starting with the children. They were more obedient in the hands of a skilled mentor. The man's eyes flickered red, and he surged forward, setting his goal. Chae Song always followed it to the end. The valley near the mountain range trembled from powerful blows and angry shouts. As a green monster, Shinho possessed incredible power and tried to use it to its fullest, attacking his opponent. However, the guy didn't yield, successfully dodging the blows. Rocks shattered, and trees were uprooted, but none of the warriors wanted to surrender. Shin realized that the guy wasn't inferior to him in power and was very skilled at defending against attacks. It irritated the man. The monster howled that he wanted to fight face to face, not hop around the clearing chasing the hero. Dodging was a sign of cowardice. However, Hwi Chon wasn't impressed by the monster's words. He said if the man preferred to die, he would fulfill his wish and stared intensely into the creature's eyes. The Dam clan heir went berserk. No one had dared to speak to him in such a tone and even covertly call him a coward and weakling. He gathered all his strength and rushed toward the guy. The hero remained calm. He extended his hands forward and whispered softly, asking the man to approach because all he represented was just a green pathetic monster. Hwi Chon used his internal power and the demonic fist technique, allowing him to increase the strength of his attacks 100-fold. Hundreds of energy-charged fists flew towards the monster, and he howled in pain as the golden threads pierced his body. The guy swung to deliver the final blow. It was the end. The hero's face, especially his eyes, glowed with a bright golden light. Suddenly, the hero heard a strange sound from above and behind. Initially, he thought some assassin had survived and turned around to check. However, the head of the Dam clan was flying down towards him. In flight, the man gathered himself and was ready to deliver a powerful punch. The hero couldn't put up a defense in time, and the man's blow hit directly, throwing Yeon forward into the nearest tree. The guy crashed swiftly into the trunk, breaking the tree in half. His face contorted in pain, splinters flew in all directions. This blow was genuinely powerful. The battle in the valley shook even the mountain range. From a distance, one could see dense dust rising above the trees. Behind the head of the Dam clan, Shin Ho appeared. He was surprised to see his father, as he had never come to the aid of his children before, fully trusting them to decide the outcome of any battle. The man looked at his son sternly but with approval. He was glad that Shin had finally merged into a unified whole with the power of the magical Shangxi pills. However, he was also interested in where Bai Yun had disappeared to. The son hesitated, responding to his father's question, and this alarmed the man. He suspected that something irreversible might have happened but hoped to intervene and prevent the situation. The guy pointed in a direction, and looking there, Chae Song saw what was left of his daughter. Bai Yun's desiccated body lay on the ground. The man became even angrier. She was his only beloved daughter, and this Yang dared to inflict irreparable harm to her. Chae Song clenched his fist tightly. Staring attentively at the shell that used to be Bai Yun, the master pondered the technique the hero had used when fighting the girl. It was incredible. The father tossed a small bag containing the miraculous pills to his only heir, instructing him to take all of them at once. But the guy began to hesitate. He knew the irreversible consequences of an overdose. However, the head of the Dam clan insisted that his son take all the pills because the power possessed by Hwi Chon was indeed immense, and even he couldn't fathom how strong this young man was. Meanwhile, the hero regained consciousness and appeared behind his enemies. He watched as the father and son tried to enhance their powers and was astonished by the Dam family members' thirst for power, willing to go to any lengths, even at the cost of their own children's lives. The old man saw the approaching guy and asked where this brat got the coveted boundless power. The hero smirked and replied that he received this gift at the doorstep of death, where the orders of the Dam clan leader led him. The man was surprised, but his thoughts were interrupted by an uproar. Turning around, he saw Shin Ho transforming into an even more frightening monster than before. The Dam clan heir roared in pain, his body increased in size, and it felt like the pressure from within would burst the guy's head at any moment. Chae Song cursed. Had he made a mistake? Perhaps his only son had too weak internal energy, and he wouldn't withstand the influence of the pills his father generously gave him. However, there was no time for remorse, and the man ordered the monster to hurry up and finish off Yang before he figured out some trick and dealt with them. The hero watched the conversation between the relatives with interest and was ready not only to defend but also to attack. He leaped skillfully upward just when the monster struck, and the ground beneath his fist erupted, sending soil flying in all directions. Right from behind Shin Ho, the grandfather leaped out and lunged with a wild cry at Hwi Chon. It was an unfair duel, 2 against 1, and the guy expected something like this from them. The man put all his strength into the blow and struck the hero's face hard. Sparks even sprayed from the guy's eyes. However, in his attempt to deal maximum damage to the opponent, the clan leader hadn't considered that Hwi Chon would immediately retaliate. He received a kick to the chest and was sent flying to the side. With a crash, the man collapsed to the ground a few meters away from the guys. His fall even created a small pit, and the earth around the old man crumbled into clumps. The mutants saw how powerfully the hero struck his father and decided that he had to relentlessly beat the scoundrel. The guy had killed his sister, and now his father was in danger. Under no circumstances could the man's death be allowed. Making a turn in the air, Hwi Chon jumped from above onto Shin Ho. The kick caught the monster off guard because the guy used one of his secret techniques. The daimare was cumbersome in his new body and couldn't react quickly or defend himself. He took the full force of the blow with maximum damage. Chae Song, at this moment, came to his senses and witnessed what was happening with his own eyes. It was powerful and incredible, but as a father, he felt annoyance and anger that the technique was applied to his child. Meanwhile, Hwi Chon prepared for a new strike. He leaped over the monster's prone body and prepared to deliver a powerful kick from above, utilizing his full momentum. The man, at this moment, rushed to his son's aid, realizing that this attack by Yang could be fatal for his heir. Beneath Chae Song's feet, the earth crumbled and scattered. Hwi Chon, on the other hand, focused on his next strike. He leaped above the lying monster and prepared to deliver a powerful kick, ready to end the fight and destroy his blood enemies. The hero concentrated his power in his hands and directed it towards his opponents. However, his fist collided with the fist of the eldest of the Dam clan. At some point, all the bones in the old man's body, starting from that very arm, stirred and cracked. It was incredible, only the man himself had ever felt something like that. A wild pain pierced his arm, flashing through every cell of his body, relentlessly destroying the bone structure from the inside. Chae Song was shocked by the injury he had received. Throughout the valley, the old man's cry of pain resounded. His arm was turning into something unusable, accompanied by unbearable pain. The hero didn't wait for the man to recover his senses and delivered another powerful blow. Energy swirled around the guy's fist, indicating that Hwi Chon had put all his internal energy into this strike. He possessed truly overwhelming power. Chae Song, the head of the clan, was defeated. His last words were about how they failed the gold plan and how this young man could have learned about the family's grand plans in the first place. The hero replied that all the answers to his questions would be received by the old man in hell, where he would deliver him immediately. The grandfather's face contorted with malice, pain, and unfulfilled ambitions. He had relied too much on himself and couldn't bear the fact that his plans to magnify the Dam clan at any cost would never come true now. The man fell to the ground and was no longer able to move. His soul had truly departed to hell, where it belonged. Hwi Chon towered over his opponent. This man was detestable to him. After all, because of him, the Yeon village was destroyed, and all members of the hero's family, whom they considered relatives to the Dam clan, were killed. Exhaling, the guy turned away and walked away from the battlefield. He was no longer interested in looking at his fallen enemies. He had avenged the Dam clan in full. However, what happened on that day, the massacre of the Dam clan, was an event that changed the course of history and shook the entire country. Various rumors circulated among the people about what had happened. Some said that the ruthless killings were the work of the Four Emperors clan. Other rumors spoke of a powerful demonic cult that had crossed paths with Dam Chae Sun. No one knew the truth and couldn't even guess what had actually happened on that day at the foot of the Tain mountain range. Murim also felt the shock. Its leaders were considered the strongest and exemplary guardians of martial arts and secret knowledge worldwide. To gather enough information about what happened, Murim received messages from all countries several times a day. Understanding how serious the situation could be, the Murim leadership even decided to convene an emergency meeting to discuss the events and possible consequences. Many of those gathered were convinced that the entire massacre was indeed the actions of the Four Emperors clan. At least, this version of events was most often heard behind closed doors where the meeting took place. A formidable man shouted louder than anyone else that they urgently needed to assemble a group of white tigers. However, the leader of Murim, Baekmu Jin, was more objective and balanced. He understood that in case of a mistaken judgment, their community would simply provoke a dangerous group into bloodthirsty actions. Hubo Jin was inflexible, claiming that the Dam clan was close to the Four Emperors, and by supporting such a theory, Murim could forever put an end to this vile clan. Members of the assembly tried to calm the vice leader because if a demonic cult attacked, who could resist further actions? Also, Han Chae-jin added that there was information that what happened to the Dam clan was the work of just one person, not any group. The man raised his hands in dismay and continued, he couldn't understand who could be this person. The Dam clan is strong enough to defend itself against the attack of a single person. Chae-jin insisted that, for this reason, the priority was to conduct an investigation first and then make serious decisions on this matter. However, they had to think about who they could trust with such a task. While the men were thinking, the silence was broken by the voice of a young man. It was unexpected, and everyone turned with surprise toward the source of the sound. The speaker was a master swordsman from the Azure Dragon clan. He volunteered to conduct a detailed investigation into the situation that led to the extermination of the entire Dam clan. The Azure Dragon clan had 240 young masters, each of whom was a virtuoso with a sword. The men wondered if the clan leader supported the actions of the young man. The young man said that he wished to personally see, at least once, the monster that single-handedly destroyed the entire Dam clan. Early in the morning on the next day, members of the Azure Dragon clan set out on a journey. They were heading to the foot of the Taehan Mountains, where the estates of the Dam clan were located. The young man brought a small squad of warriors with him and was determined. He genuinely wanted to know the whole truth about what had happened in that place. The second deputy of Murim thought the glints of the rising sun were a good sign, but his deputy wondered if they entrusted such an important task to such a young clan too early. However, they couldn't do anything about it. After all, the clan leader had chosen that young man to be his son-in-law, so the men had no choice but to trust him. Doubt still tormented the deputy head, and he couldn't keep them to himself. He kept talking and talking until the leader asked him to be silent again. Chae-jin also shared information that, in addition to this squad, he personally sent a trusted person to gather information, and they would soon have new relevant data on the matter. Bo Jin was outraged. Not only did his friend assign several people to solve this issue simultaneously, but he also did it secretly. The man apologized to his friend because his actions were dictated by the desire to avoid misunderstandings, but the first deputy was still dissatisfied. Another person was observing their dialogue on the rooftop. He listened attentively and memorized every word the men said. Meanwhile, a new day was beginning in the Shaanxi Valley. The sun shone brightly from behind the mountain range, illuminating the trees with its warm rays. The hero walked along the road, pondering how uneasy it must be in the village right now. He disappeared right from the wedding ceremony, and now there were also news about the Dam clan. After the destruction of the Yun village and the killing of all members of the hero's family, Hwi Chon wandered for several days on the territory of the Dam clan. It was then, lost and embittered, that he found a cave with a gigantic luminous stone containing an unsurpassed spirit of martial arts. To prevent anyone from using its power, the hero decided that the stone needed to be destroyed. The Dam family had excelled in martial arts even without it, and if someone used the spirit's power for evil purposes, it would be a great disaster. He pounded it with all his might until the stone cracked and shattered into small pieces. However, fate threw the hero into the past, at the moment when he had just married a girl from the Dam family, Yeon Hwi Chon understood how incredible his story was. No one would believe him, and they would consider him mad, even if he tried to tell anyone about it. Therefore, what happened to him had to remain a secret. Meanwhile, the sun was already shining brightly over the Yeon village, and it was quiet, peaceful, and calm. Hwi Chon's house gleamed with cleanliness. The new mistress had tidied it up while waiting for her husband. Yeon sat by the window, contemplating where her husband could have gone right after the wedding. Did he disregard her because it was a marriage of convenience? The girl also feared that she simply didn't appeal to the man. Yeon never considered herself a beauty, although her appearance was quite charming. If that incident hadn't happened on that day, how could everything have turned out? Twilight descended upon the city, and the Dam family always looked down on Dam Gia-ju. This was because Gia-ju's stepmother came from the Dam Shangxi clan, and the man led a feudal life, drowning his days in alcohol. It was precisely alcohol that ruined Gia-ju, but nobody cared until his death because he had done no good to anyone during his lifetime. However, the man had a little daughter, Yeon, and after her father's death, the girl was taken under the care of the Dam family. But an easy life did not await the girl there. Instead, she was treated like a servant, performing a million different household tasks while her peers played carefree. In reality, her life was incredibly tragic and cruel. The girl often cried in her room. She was alone in this world, and no one could take care of her. One day, while carrying a basket of dirty laundry, a man asked the head of the clan about the identity of the beautiful girl. The Dam leader replied that she was the daughter of his niece, and the man proposed to betroth her to his son, the best martial artist. Che's son was surprised but agreed to such a beneficial marriage, especially since she was just the daughter of a niece, not his biological daughter, and he could sacrifice her for a profitable marriage. After this incident, Yeon got her own room, beautiful clothes, and a personal maid. The Dam family dressed the girl beautifully and always took her to events to showcase her to others. People began to talk about how the girl would grow up to be a true beauty, and rumors circulated about the divine beauty of Dam Yeon. Indeed, with each passing year, the girl became more beautiful, and her outward beauty complemented her inner strength. She was a magnificent person. Yeon had excellent taste and a gentle disposition. People gave her the nickname Heavenly Phoenix, and they always enjoyed her company and conversations. When the girl turned 16, an unpleasant incident occurred that once again changed Yeon's life. She was sitting in her room when someone suddenly covered her mouth with their hand. Due to the hand being large and broad, the girl guessed that the intruder was a man and became very frightened. The intruder in her chambers turned out to be Shin Ho, the heir to the Dam clan. He ordered her not to make a sound if she wanted to live. The boy had known the girl since childhood, as he and his sister played while Yeon cleaned the floors in their house. However, he had also witnessed her transformation into a true beauty. The girl understood the malicious thoughts in the boy's mind and forcefully pushed him away with all her strength. She didn't know how to save herself and her honor because it wasn't just anyone, but the heir to the Dam clan, and in fear, she retreated. The man didn't like Yeon's reaction, and he promised that she would regret daring to strike him. Suddenly, the girl's gaze fell on the fireplace where the coals were smoldering, and a special rod for turning them lay on top. Shin Ho didn't understand how, but she managed to run past him and grabbed the glowing iron. The girl was determined and threatened the boy with the tool not to approach her. She also threatened him with the wrath of the head of the Dam clan if there were any flaws on the girl's face before the wedding. Shin-ho decided that the girl had gone mad and tried to take the glowing rod from her, but he was too careless. The night's silence was pierced by a cry of pain, a turning point in Hwa Yun's life after which she stopped considering herself a beauty. Cherry blossoms gently swirled outside the window in the village of Yeon. These trees grew everywhere, decorating the homes of the local residents and bringing them joy. Hwa Yun sat by the window and thought that most likely her scar repelled her husband, so he disappeared immediately after the wedding. She didn't know what to do, but suddenly heard a gentle breeze behind her and turned around. It was strange. Behind her stood Hwi Chon. He asked if the girl had been waiting for him for a long time and if everything was all right. Her face looked so puzzled. Hwa Yun was surprised because the man approached her so quietly that if it weren't for the breeze, she wouldn't have noticed his presence. When asked where the man had been, he replied that he had punished those who deserved death, and his voice sounded indifferent at that moment. Hwa Yun asked in confusion if she had understood him correctly because the answer was very strange. Then Hwi Chon gave her an answer that clarified everything. He said he had destroyed the Dam clan, wiped their presence from the Shaanxi Valley. The girl was astonished. It sounded like a strange joke. However, the husband said that even if it sounds strange, it's definitely not a joke. It's the truth. The Dam clan no longer exists. The boy was called by his father. He heard his voice and approached to confirm whether his child had really returned home. The man told the boy to follow him. They needed to have a private conversation, and they immediately left. Hwa Yun looked in bewilderment at the backs of her husband and father-in-law. She didn't understand what strange things Hwi Chon was saying. How could this be true? The men entered the main building of the Yeon clan and closed the doors behind them. A serious conversation awaited them. The boy's father sat behind a sturdy table and began his interrogation. He wanted to know where his son had fled immediately after the wedding ceremony. The entire village searched for the careless groom, but there was no trace of him. Where and for what purpose could the newlywed husband be wandering? No one knew. Hwi Chon explained that the Dam family had discovered a new gold vein and informed the hero about it, so he had to leave for a while. The head of the Yeon clan was surprised. Such a thing simply couldn't be true. However, the boy assured his father that there were people among them who were loyal to the Dam clan, so he had to deal with this issue on his own. Hwi Chon supposed that his grandfather and godfather were among those people, as they were happily drinking alcohol at the celebration. The boy's father pounded his fist on the table. He couldn't stand traitors and wanted to deal with those who were not loyal to their own family right away. The clan head also noticed how these two had become close recently, and their behavior was not good. The fact that the Dam clan, known for its cruelty and immeasurable ambitions, had discovered a gold vein was very bad news. The boy saw that the information troubled his father, and he decided to confess, saying that no one from that clan would bother them anymore. The head of Yeon was surprised and asked again. The boy repeated what he had just told his wife. He had destroyed all the members of the Dam clan. The hero also said that at the moment, he had one unfinished business, and he would be able to describe the whole picture to his father later, after settling his matters. When the clan head asked what super important matter his son could have, he calmly replied that he was going to execute the traitors. The man stared in shock at his son. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Could it be true that the Dam clan was really destroyed? His child had been away for not so long, but during that time, he had completely changed. Now, he was a completely different Hwi Chon. Meanwhile, two traders from the Yeon family gathered their belongings and tried to escape far from the village and the troubles that awaited them. The grandfather urged the man, as they had already heard what people were saying about the destruction of the Dam clan in the Shaanxi Valley, and they were afraid that death would come for them too. Suddenly, a voice from above scolded the men for living in idleness while others took care of having enough food for the winter. The boy jumped off the boulder that rose above the road, startling his relatives considerably. He asked if these men had ever thought that their foolish actions and thoughtless deeds would lead to bandits simply raiding the village of Yeon. The men didn't like the tone and words of the young man. They were older and demanded respectful treatment. In turn, they began to shout at the boy. However, the hero was indifferent to the traitor's words. Because of them, irreparable damage had been done, and many innocent lives, both adults and children, were lost. The boy concentrated his energy and directed it in a wave of power towards his former relatives. The men began to cough and suffocate. Hwi Chon grabbed the traitors by the throat and said that their actions were the cause of their dishonorable death. He desiccated their physical forms just as he had earlier destroyed by Yeon. The men turned into dehydrated mummies. After finishing, the boy pushed their bodies away, as if they were unwanted sacks of bones. He was repulsed not only by touching them but even looking at them. Standing over the traitors, he said that their lives were in vain, and everything they deserved after their actions was death. Sometime later, the Azure Dragon squad reached the residence of the Dan clan. The building was in a terrible state, and chaos reigned around it. The squad leader inquired if they had found the body of the clan head and concluded that the spectacle here was not for the faint-hearted. One of the warriors replied that eyewitnesses present during the massacre reported that the head of the Dan family, along with his children, was pursuing someone, and they split into squads to gather more information. Then the leader asked if people had found out where Dam Hwa Yeon had been sent, but practically everyone who knew about this marriage had died. The girl's wedding was so shrouded in secrecy by the heads of the houses that very little was known about this union to those not initiated into the inner circles of people. Even the groom's name was kept secret from everyone. All that could be learned was the location of the village, to the south of the mountains, but this mountain range was incredibly long. The man had met Hwa Yeon from the Dam clan at a social event a long time ago. It was a memorable day. The most pleasant memory was this girl, beautiful as an angel descending from heaven. Since then, the man dreamed of her becoming his bride, as such a feeling had only occurred to him once, and he was ready to lay the whole world at Hwa Yeon's feet, just to have her with him. It was difficult for the man to concentrate on his mundane routine. All his thoughts were occupied by the image of the beautiful lady. Being far away, the master missed her so much that he would overcome thousands of kilometers just to see her silhouette in the window. One day, when the boy returned home, his father called him for a serious conversation. This news broke the man's heart. On that day, Myung-go learned that the Dam clan had broken off their engagement. He couldn't believe his ears, as no one even mentioned the reasons for such an action. The father said that the clan head had decided to marry the girl to the grandson of the Murim alliance leader. This news shocked the boy, and his father forbade him even to think about the girl. However, such was beyond the power of the enamored youth. Myung-go could not forget the girl and would roam the territory of the Dam clan for hours, hoping to catch a glimpse of her from a distance. But even this proved futile. The girl seemed to have disappeared. That's when a friend told him a story that astonished the young man. The friend explained that due to an incident, Hwa Yeon had suffered a facial injury. To conceal this disfigurement, her family had decided to keep her away from prying eyes. Myung-go completely lost his composure after hearing this news. He delved into the study of medicine, read numerous books in the hope of finding a way to heal his beloved's face. And now she was married to someone unknown. Even if he belonged to Murim, his connections with the Dam clan did not bode well. The man tightly gripped the hilt of his sword. Undoubtedly, this man, her husband, was as cruel and despicable as the head of the Dam clan himself. Myung-go's contemplation was interrupted by his subordinates, who identified the culprit responsible for annihilating the entire Dam clan, someone named Yeon Hwi Chon. The commander then ordered all the warriors to gather and immediately head to the Yeon village to find this person. Hwi Chon stood by the shore of Lake Mweho, which was incredibly beautiful but no less poisonous. Nothing living could survive in this lake. The boy thought about purifying the water of Lake Mweho from poison. If successful, it could be used for fishing and irrigating fields. If the hills around the lake were cultivated and vegetables and fruits planted, the village wouldn't have to fear hunger anymore, and there would be no need to worry about survival. Even if they sold the gold from the well now, the Yeon village would survive. However, all its inhabitants needed to become stronger, not just financially. With these thoughts, Hwi Chon jumped into the lake, taking the first step to realize his grand plan to improve the lives of the people living under the same roof as him. The boy's energy spread in waves across the water's surface, expelling poison, healing the lake's structure, and filling it with vitality. The hero confidently walked along the lake bed with a goal that would help save hundreds of lives. He considered it worthy and noble, so he was sure of what he was doing. Reaching the other shore, he thought that perhaps the answer to his question was hidden here, in the cave near the lake. Standing at the cave entrance, Hwi Chon pondered. It was the very place where he gained knowledge and martial arts skills. Hwi Chon entered, feeling that the key to his task was nearby, somewhere on the surface. He just needed to look more broadly. The sun had long set, and the moon illuminated the Yeon village with its rays. The little girl ran with all her might. She couldn't afford to stop under any circumstances, or she wouldn't survive. A pack of wild dogs chased the child. The famished beasts caught wind of the girl's fear and refused to release their rightful prey. Despite the girl running as fast as she could, the dogs were closing in. She was very small and couldn't obscure her trail as adeptly as adults could. Meanwhile, Hwa Yeon decided to stroll through the streets of her new home. She was curious to explore everything around, and she also wondered where her husband had disappeared to again. Suddenly, Hwa Yeon heard a child's cry for help. Looking ahead, she saw a little girl running towards her, pursued by 3 hungry wild dogs. Determined not to let the little one get hurt, Hwa Yeon caught her in her arms, shielding her with her own body from the crazed dogs. These dogs were truly frightening, snarling with sharp-toothed mouths, saliva dripping, and madly gleaming eyes. A few more minutes, and the dogs would pounce on the woman and the child. However, Hwa Yeon couldn't run. The dogs would catch up sooner or later. Now there was a chance to at least save the little girl. Suddenly, a male shout rang out, and the village elder leaped forward. It was a stroke of luck because the man had a weapon with him. He zealously struck one of the creatures with a stick, then another. The dogs whimpered, but their blood was boiling, and they didn't back down. Knocking out one animal after another, the man could finally breathe a sigh of relief. He had managed to save his fiancée and the neighbor's girl from death. The man asked Hwa Yeon if the child was all right, whether the dogs had bitten the little one. The girl shook her head in denial. Looking at the little girl in her arms, who was now frightened and unconscious from fear, Hwa Yeon suspected that she came from a wealthy family. She was well-dressed and groomed. Hwa Yeon guessed that she was running from someone, not just the dogs. The head of Yeon advised the girl to hurry and hide the child. One couldn't know who else might come into the village in the middle of the night. At the sound of the commotion, people came out of their houses, wanting to know what had happened, why there were barking dogs in the middle of the night. The village elder looked at his people and explained that wild dogs had entered the village, but he had dealt with them, so everything was all right. Suddenly, they heard the voice of a stranger who was dissatisfied that the dogs were called wild because they were excellent hunting dogs. He and several of his comrades emerged from the forest following the dogs' tracks. The leader continued to question, asking whether this man had killed all their valuable dogs, mistaking them for ordinary mongrels. The village elder replied that he had to defend his people. The dogs attacked, and he didn't know they had owners. The bald, red-bearded man laughed. He thought the elder's words were nonsense because their dogs couldn't attack anyone without a command. Most likely, the leader was hiding the girl the dogs were chasing. Elder Yeon replied that he hadn't seen any child but was willing to compensate the men for the damage caused by the hounds. They could part ways amicably. The red-bearded man didn't hesitate much and almost immediately stated that he wanted 28 grams of gold for each of his dogs, such was their value to the owner. The old man standing behind the leader intervened in the men's conversation. The amount mentioned for one dog equaled the cost of a house. The old man asked the men to stop being impudent. The trio's leader placed his enormous hand on the frail shoulder of the old man and asked if he understood correctly. Did the old man consider the bald man's words a joke? This situation began to stress Elder Yeon. He didn't know how to get out of the situation with minimal losses, and money seemed to be the simplest option. Possessing a significant internal strength, the village elder examined the power in the stranger's gesture. The man was attempting to exert it on the old man. Head Yeon hastened to warn his old acquaintance of the danger, and several people turned towards his words. But the man didn't make it. The bald one's hand, which touched the old man, twisted and turned it. The old man lost consciousness. The villagers opened their mouths in astonishment and stared at the outrageous incident, not even trying to help the elderly man. At the feet of the red-bearded man, with a contorted face from pain, lay the old man, a member of their community. No one wanted to repeat his fate. Suddenly, the bald killer said that he didn't like jokes, so the villagers could draw their own conclusions about whether to joke with him. Staring directly at the leader, the stranger said that if they couldn't pay him in gold, they could pay with their bodies. He was ready to take 4 of them with him and pointed with his finger at whom exactly. The village elder didn't like these people from the very beginning, and their conditions were downright outrageous. Therefore, no one was going to agree to them. One of the bandits in a mask drew his sword and decided to attack the man. The village head took a defensive position, ready to repel the blow. The robber was strong, evident not only from his physical form but also from the aura of power surrounding his body. His movements were very fast and lightning-like. The elder stood, tightly gripping a long stick in his hands. However, he didn't even notice how the man approached him and made just a few sword swings. In shock, the leader looked ahead. He didn't even feel the touch of the metal. The man screamed. Elder Yeon's weapon was split in half, along with the man's limbs.
Didn't even get to run.
In the valley at the foot of the mountain range, 2 travelers were slowly making their way, sent from Urim to gather information. The old man in a straw hat tried to understand why they were sent on the trail of Myongo's squad and why there was so much secrecy surrounding their assignment. The second man was counting prayer beads and, taking a break from his activity, he suggested that instead of pursuing Yeon Hwi Chon, they should go after the Azure Dragon squad and investigate what the warriors overlooked. The hat-wearing old man then asked what they planned to do with the one who wiped out the Dam clan. Would they capture him and send him to prison? The Grand Monk replied that everyone knew how despicable the members of the Dam clan were. They showed no mercy, and their reputation was fitting. However, they were strong in martial arts, and letting their deaths go unanswered wasn't an option. The man was genuinely surprised about who the person was that managed to exterminate an entire clan and what kind of power he possessed. The patrol elder then asked why they deviated from the squad's path and were now taking an entirely different route if their task was merely to observe and note unnoticed facts. The monk explained that there was a place the squad leader ignored, heading straight for Yun village, and it would be beneficial for them to investigate here. The men stared at the mummy-like body lying on the ground and pondered which technique might have been used on this person. They also noticed other bodies nearby and hurried to examine them as well. While the first body suggested a modified demonic technique, the second body seemed to have undergone changes from within, likely due to concoctions made by the Dam family. Looking at the huge brown monster, the monk thought that this person clearly exceeded the permissible dosage, resulting in such a transformation, and despite all his power, he met such a pitiful end. The hat-wearing elder discovered the body of the Dam clan leader and hurried to inform his companion. The sight was incredible. The men saw the condition of Chai Won and the pit in which he lay. It was evident that he made it with his own body. The Grand Monk summarized that such a retribution against martial arts masters, especially in their enhanced form, could only have been carried out by someone who improved the martial arts formula itself. The man thought to himself that Myung-go's squad was in danger because what happened to the Dam clan was unimaginable for an ordinary person. The bandits didn't want to leave the village. Hwa Yun saw what was happening and, unable to bear it, ran out into the street to her father-in-law, but it was too late. Elder Yun was still conscious, but he wanted to protect his daughter-in-law from the bandits, and all he could do was whisper an order for her to run away without looking back. Uttering these words, the man breathed his last, and the girl started crying. She couldn't believe what was happening. Nothing foretold disaster this evening, but it happened. Interrupting Hwa Yun's thoughts, the red-bearded man said that now the price for the dogs had been paid, and they could talk about the main question. Casting a furious glance at those present and stopping his gaze on the girl, the man asked where they had hidden the child. Hwa Yun looked at the bandit in fear and said there was no child. She didn't understand what he was talking about. The dogs came running from the forest and attacked the village. The bald man was furious. He said that these people didn't understand the situation, and if they wanted to lie until the end, he would help them cope with it and remember the truth. The thug ordered his partner in the white mask to take care of it. The white ghost, as this bandit was called, was to burn the village to the ground. The bandit produced a dynamite stick in his hands. He effortlessly lit the fuse and showed the device to the onlookers. Everyone fell silent, staring at the man in incomprehension. Then, the white ghost tossed the smoking sticks into the nearest house, a large, beautiful structure owned by one of the villagers. An explosion echoed, and the building shattered into small pieces. The fire leaped from beam to beam, relentless. People on the street started screaming and bustling around. They didn't understand what was happening. Who were these people who had come, killed the village head, and were now destroying their homes? Meanwhile, the bandit lit another explosive. He had no intention of stopping. He genuinely wanted to burn the entire village to the ground. Swinging, the white ghost launched the next projectile into a more distant house. Another explosion rang out, and the fire started spreading to the nearby structure. People began rushing out of the houses. Encouraged, one of the men armed himself with makeshift weapons and went to attack the saboteur. However, these men were ordinary folks, lacking the speed of a warrior. The white ghost quickly responded to the peasants rushing towards him. He drew his sword and directed it toward the attackers. A couple of sword swings, and there were no more brave souls trying to defend their homes from the invaders. The crowd exhaled in fear, watching the last of the men settle. No one wanted to die today. Hwa Yun watched in horror as her new home burned, her people were killed, and she herself was helpless. Suddenly, the red-bearded man grabbed the girl by her hair and pulled her back sharply. He tilted her head upward so she could see his face and asked if she understood what awaited them in case of disobedience. Simultaneously, he seized her hand, deciding that physical pain would convince the girl that he had no intention of killing or sparing anyone. The bald man effortlessly, playfully, snapped the girl's index finger, and in the silence, the sound of the bone in her hand cracking was audible. Hwa Yun screamed, experiencing intense pain. No one had treated her so cruelly before. The red-bearded man added that torture was his specialty, and if she hadn't understood yet, he would easily help her find the right answers in her mind and tell them all the information they needed. If the girl continued to resist and refused to cooperate, the next time not only her fingers would be broken. The man promised to break not only her fingers but also the joints and limbs of her and her people, slowly, one by one, ensuring they endured prolonged agony. Hwi Chon walked through the cave where he had recently experienced a miraculous transformation. He had no idea what was happening in the village now, so he continued to contemplate how everything unfolded. The guy returned to the place where he gained his powers, stood, and pondered in complete silence. Thanks to the spirit of the cave, Hwi Chon had gained strength and perfected his martial arts. The stone he shattered was now intact, but it didn't shimmer like it did when he first found it. The hero speculated that perhaps the artifact had used all its magic to transport him to the past, but the hieroglyphs on it still shimmered, just like that time. Hwi Chon thought he could train here. Besides, he hadn't explored the area enough. After all, the most interesting things are always hidden. Advancing toward the stairs, the man looked at the spring, which shimmered as mysteriously as the enigmatic artifact. He wondered if the stone contributed to this glow and transferred some of its magical properties to the water. He scooped up the water with his palm and took a few sips. Its taste was delightful, but what surprised the man the most happened a few seconds later. Literally, his entire body filled with energy. He distinctly felt energy streams intertwining in his body, much like the circulatory system. The hero looked again at the spring. Just one sip of water from it gave him vigor and restored his strength. He thought of his wife. Surely, this water could heal Hwa Yun and help many people in the village. Encouraged by his thoughts, Hwi Chon felt powerful, with the opportunity to change the lives of his loved ones for the better. With confidence, the hero entered the cave to become stronger and realize what he had planned. Meanwhile, in the village, the bandits were trying to achieve their desired outcome through torture. Hwa Yun, even from intense pain, refused to betray the child and kept her presence a secret. The red-bearded man was angry, considering the girl insignificant. Even when he broke all her fingers, she shouldn't make a sound, and now she screamed because of just one. Then he pulled out a bottle of a strange-looking substance from his pocket, calling it a special torture method specifically for Hwa Yun. The bottle contained parasites known as brainworms, rarely used in the art of torture. The worms entered the person's body through the eye sockets. They were so thin and nimble that a person didn't notice how they infiltrated the brain. Then the parasites began devouring the cells of the nervous system, and the person experienced incredible pain, convulsing with every limb in the rhythm of a dance of hellish agony. The bandit approached the girl, holding the bottle up to her face, asking if she wanted to try this delicacy for the uninitiated. Hwa Yun was horrified, and the girl didn't even have the strength to scream. She silently prayed for everything to stop. Suddenly, the red-bearded man felt a strange energy in the air and a sword kicked into his shoulder. It was unexpected for the man. Turning around, he met the glowing sword face to face, the blade right in the middle of the bandit's eyes. The red-bearded man recoiled and made a sudden leap backward, letting go of the girl, while Myung-go's sword sliced through the air. The bandit was surprised that there were knowledgeable martial artists in the village. Why hadn't he noticed them before, or were they hiding from him? However, upon closer inspection of the young man, the bandit realized he wasn't a local resident. But then, who and for what reason would someone intervene in the conflict in the middle of the night for the sake of some villagers? Myung-go was angry, suspecting that this red-bearded scoundrel was Yeon Hwi Chon. He was ready to kill him without hesitation. Energy surrounded the boy. He released his inner strength and aimed his weapon at his opponent. The sword's edge wounded the bandit, and he recoiled in bewilderment. The man stared at Myung-go, unable to understand where this stranger came from and why he intervened in a conflict that didn't concern him. The red-bearded man shouted his questions to the stranger, wanting to understand who this Yeon Hwi Chon was, as the boy claimed, and why he was involved in this matter at all. Myung-go introduced himself as the leader of the Blue Dragon Squad, calling himself Dragon Sword. The boy was furious, asking if the man believed that his actions would go unpunished. Hwa Yun stood behind the boy, extremely surprised. The nickname Myung-go used was familiar to her. She became curious about what he was doing in this village and why he mentioned her husband's name with such hatred. The mercenaries lined up, looking at the boy with disdain. They said they had no idea who he was talking about and that they came to this village for a reason. They would leave only after settling everything. Myung-go didn't expect the bandits to engage in a peaceful conversation, so he decided to act ruthlessly. He felt no mercy for such people. The commander shouted for his squad to regroup and prepare for an attack. It was time to teach the bandits a lesson and set an example for those who dared to repeat their actions. The Blue Dragon warriors reacted instantly. They assumed a fighting position that differed in technique from the commonly accepted teachings of martial arts. The bandits observed the squad's actions, only smirking at the effort the soldiers put into their maneuvers. The mercenaries believed that these warriors would find their death in the village today, so strongly did they believe in their own strength. Redbeard focused his energy and directed it towards his comrades in battle. The bold one believed that the warriors themselves expressed a desire to leave this world, and he was happy to let them do so, even helping a bit. The black and white ghosts rushed at the Azure Dragon squad. They intended to eliminate the enemies as quickly as possible and continue interrogating the village residents. However, the members of the Azure Dragon squad were no cowards. The soldiers confidently stood in a defensive position, anticipating the enemy's attack. The man in the white mask broke through first. The warriors pointed the tips of their swords at the approaching enemy. They had no intention of sparing the bandit, relying on their skills to quickly deal with the opponent. The man in white clothes was cunning, a skilled fighter who had fought against the strongest opponents. The bandit avoided the enemy's trap by jumping up over the heads of the men, surprising those present. They did not expect such agility from a man in white. The white ghost made several sword movements in the air, leaving the men of the Azure Dragon squad with no chance. The mercenary wiped out part of the squad, which had prepared for battle in just a few minutes. The remaining part of the Blue Dragons prepared to repel the attack of the bandit in the black mask. The soldiers received the command to hold formation. The thug grinned maliciously, just like his comrades. He was strong and knew that even such well-trained warriors could not inflict significant damage on him. He rushed into the center of the group, threatening to decapitate all his opponents. Myung-go watched as the scoundrels dealt with his people, and anger boiled inside him. He was responsible for the lives of these people. The boy marveled at who these people were, whose appearance resembled demons, and their behavior was no different from that of crazed wild beasts. He carefully looked at the appearance of each of the opponents again. These people were truly experienced warriors, and something in their demeanor alarmed the leader of the squad. He recalled rumors about legendary mercenaries who were masters of torture. If the black and white ones were devilish twins, then the red-bearded one was a harbinger of the bloody moon. He was an adept in the most sophisticated tortures in the world and took pleasure in tormenting his victims. Myung-go and the third group of his squad fell into a trap. The demons closed in on them, defeating most of the Azure Dragon squad. The red-bearded devil laughed evilly. Now the warriors of the blue dragon resembled more mice trembling in fear. The man asked why the leader did not listen to his words from the very beginning. Then his people would have stayed alive because the bandits had no business with them. The leader proposed that those who remained sheath their swords, and they would spare their lives. The warriors of Myung-go were anxious. They all wanted to have a future. The soldiers whispered that their opponents were too strong. They also recognized the red beard and would prefer to die instead of being tormented by his methods of torture. Myung-go ordered his men to sheath their swords. He had already sacrificed the lives of their comrades in vain. With the clang of blades hitting the ground, the men decided to accept the enemy's conditions, hoping they wouldn't regret their decision. The only one who kept his sword was their captain. The warriors looked at their leader in astonishment, not understanding why he didn't disarm like the rest of the squad. The man leaped and swung at the remaining soldiers. The men looked puzzled at their leader's actions, not understanding what was happening. Myung-go declared that if they reasoned this way, they had no pride and were not worthy to call themselves members of the Azure Dragon squad because their behavior was offensive to the clan. Redbeard watched the boy with admiration. In a matter of minutes, this young man became far more interesting to him. He could call this swordsman even more insane than the bald one. The man was already looking forward to how interesting it would be to torture this young lad. He planned to flay him alive in a particularly sophisticated way. Myung-go didn't want to hear even the voice of this villain. He ordered the man to shut up and pointed his sword towards the opponent. Concentrating energy at the tips of his fingers, the boy transformed it into the breath of the Azure Dragon and attacked Redbeard. The bald one laughed. The boy was a worthy student of the Murim leader, and his sword cut sharply, like a shark's teeth. Myung-go was furious. He wanted to shut this old man up once and for all. The boy's face expressed all his thoughts at that moment. The boy transformed the energy into another technique and attempted to attack Redbeard with it. The man dodged at the last moment, and the energy disc flew over his bald head, narrowly missing. The uncontrollable energy hit the roof of one of the houses, causing the building to smoke and sway. Myung-go sighed discontentedly. He was not pleased with his mistake, but there was nothing he could do to rectify the situation. Redbeard pondered that despite the boy's real power, he was quite young and impulsive in his decisions. Like all immature youngsters, he saw the battle tunnel vision, focusing only on one goal. The blue dragon sword sensed the approach of the white ghost and turned just as the man swung his merciless weapon over the boy's head. The boy's back was exposed, and the mercenary seized the opportunity to strike him while Myung-go was focused on Redbeard's attack. On the other side, the second demon rushed into the attack. The defense of the boy looked like a sieve. Wherever he turned, the opponent could easily strike an exposed area. The sword of the man in the black mask finally reached its target and wounded Myung-go in the side. The guy screamed in pain. Leaning on his sword, the warrior squatted on one knee and tried to recover. Sweat rolled down his face, and the wound caused severe pain. The white ghost said with ridicule that the reputation of the dragon sword is exaggerated. It is clear that the boy wanted to be one of the 9 dragons, but in fact he is nothing interesting. A man in black approached the guy and growled contentedly. He was about to complete the blow he had begun. Suddenly the black man's words were interrupted by the red-bearded man. He was rapidly approaching and ordered his partners to stop. The bald man wanted to leave the guy alive. Ordinary death was too banal and boring for him. He offered to take the boy with him to the lair of the four and there continue to torture the dragon warrior with torture. Meanwhile, the monk and the grandfather in the hat continued their way in the valley. They reasoned that the person who defeated the Dam clan had a power comparable to that possessed by the elders of the Murin. The great monk noted that Yeon Hwi Chon did not belong to any of the branches of martial arts used for killing, but his companion did not understand what the big man meant. The grandfather thought about it. He assumed that the boy was still a member of some sect or was related to the four saints. Then the monk continued that in the entire history of Murim there was only one such person, an exception to all the rules. The grandfather did not know who his friend was talking about. Sura, who lived 800 years ago, drowned the world of Murim in blood, but it was so long ago that not many people remember, and that warrior had no descendants. In any case, the men decided to hurry up, because Myung-go and the Blue Dragon squad were exactly walking on the edge of a knife and danger lurked for them at every step. It was written on the stone that the Nameless One was buried here, and so he remained. Hwi Chon carefully examined the stone with the inscription. Now he understood that this was the legacy of one of the immortal souls who lived on earth. The hero opened the lid of the tombstone, where Sura, deprived of the name, left his knowledge and incredible power. The text on the stone said that 2 hours outside is equivalent to 60 years of life in the cave, and only the most worthy, those with strong will and determination, will be able to achieve the result. Having entered here, a person had to devote 60 years of his life to study. Only after it was completed successfully, the doors of the cave would open again. Hwi Chon was persistent and diligent. He gained strength, experience, absorbed all the knowledge that the immortal Great Spirit provided him. The guy became a strong and skilled warrior, capable of protecting his clan from enemies like those with whom his fate had once connected. The hero knew that he must make the most of this opportunity if he hoped to confront great martial artists in the future. Episodes of the tragedy that occurred in the village of Yeon constantly flashed in his thoughts. When he could not protect anyone, this fueled the guy's hatred. The moment came when Hwi Chon mastered the knowledge, learned all the techniques and had the opportunity to leave the cave to return home. Meanwhile, Yeon province was on fire. The battle between the Blue Dragon squad and the bandits added to the fire, actively incinerating house after house. Redbeard's minions mocked the prisoner. On the one hand, this guy was the only one they left alive after the battle. On the other hand, he was very unlucky to become the prey of the executioner of the Red Moon. Myung-go experienced pangs of conscience. He could not come to terms with his position as a loser, but he no longer had any strength left to respond to the scoundrels. While the twins were holding Myung-go, the Redbeard returned to where he was interrupted. The man continued to torture Hwi Chon. He grabbed the girl by the shoulder, and she screamed loudly. Due to the sudden movements of the bandit, the mask covering her ugliness fell off the girl. The bald executioner didn't even pay attention to this and continued to threaten Hwi Chon with a parasite that would eat her brain if Hwi Chon did not give the child to the robbers. At the moment when the girl began to scream and beg to stop the torture, Myung-go found a second wind. He recognized the one he loved and could not find for so long. The white ghost kicked the guy and pressed his head to the ground so that he would make less sounds. Dragon Sword lost consciousness for a moment, and in a vision he looked at the charming Hwi Chon on the day he first saw her. The guy came to his senses and tried to gather himself and his inner energy together to help the girl. The red-bearded man did not waste any time. He took one of the worms out of the bottle and brought it very close to Hwi Chon's frightened eyes. Suddenly, the executioner heard an unfamiliar voice ordering him to stop and was surprised at such impudence. Turning towards the speaker, the bandit barely had time to jump away from the stick rushing towards him. Opposite the red-bearded man stood two men, a giant and a short one. The stick probably belonged to one of them, and the bandit was curious who it was. The great monk folded his palms in a welcoming gesture. Despite the bloodthirstiness of the situation, he remained polite to everyone. The travelers asked how the thugs could still remain human while their actions were similar to the devil's machinations. The red-bearded man stared at the men. From their manner of behavior and speech, it was clear that these were the next representatives of Murim, and they also decided to interfere in something other than their own business. The old man in the hat said that the bald executioner is the only one who practices torture here. Isn't the red-bearded one afraid of divine punishment? The man was outraged that some grandfather was making comments to him. He shouted at the traveler and said that they would deal with them too. Guan Muyang again put his palm in front of him and said that he accepts the will of the red beard and is not going to tolerate the devilry that he has created in this settlement. The twins looked at the great monk in bewilderment. They had heard about this warrior more than once, and it was amazing to see him with their own eyes. The red-bearded man also knew that name. His mentor warned the man about how dangerous each of the representatives of the four, which included Mu Young, was. However, now he had two clever assistants on his side. By combining their strength, the thugs could have a chance of success. The executioner told his minions that in front of them was now one of the great Shaolin monks, and to end the battle with him in victory would mean leaving their names in history. Myung-go saw familiar faces and hastened to warn the travelers that the red-bearded man was one of the most cruel executioners. The guy winced in pain. His wound was serious and without timely help could become irreversible. The grandfather in the hat noticed the guy's poor condition and took his warning into account. The fame of the executioner of the Red Moon spread throughout the world, and the devilish twins were involved in this case. The monk shrugged and asked the old man to take care of the blue dragon boy after the man caught and interrogated the bandits. The trio of thugs stood opposite Mu Young with a smug look, the men thinking that their advantage in numbers would help break the great Shaolin monk. The giant took off his outer clothing, under which one could see the man's huge muscles, trained by many years of practice. The man stretched his stiff muscles and did several energy exercises to disperse chi throughout the body. With a cry for strength to come to him, the monk took a fighting stance and was determined to teach these disciples of the devil a lesson. The red-bearded man tried to joke, saying that they were not impressed with the monk's biceps and that Mu Young would not be able to defeat them so easily. The bald man gave the order to the twins to attack first, and the ghosts rushed into battle, circling in the air. The black ghost tried to use the spinning sword technique, but missed, because despite his great height and muscles, the monk was very dexterous. The bandit needlessly underestimated his opponent, and Mu Young prepared his fist to teach him a lesson first. The great monk hit the ghost in the face, and the man's mask shattered into small pieces. The thug himself did several somersaults and fell to the ground, losing consciousness. The red-bearded man opened his mouth in amazement. Only before his eyes the black ghost was defeated with one blow. The white ghost was angry. No one could defeat the twins until that day, and what the monk did not fit into his ideal picture of the world. The man wanted to attack, but the bald man asked him to slow down. He would attack next, and when the monk opened, the time of the white ghost would come. The red-bearded man pulled out his huge sword and shouted threats to the monk, but in his thoughts the man hoped that he could defeat the enemy with the help of at least one of the twins. Mu Young looked carefully at the bald man. His aura lit up completely differently. The warrior decided to be more careful with this man. The red-bearded man used his lunar aura technique in battle, and the energy rushed towards the monk in a powerful wave. The blow was really powerful, and the giant barely had time to bend down so as not to take the full power of this energy upon himself. The executioner decided to repeat what he thought was a successful blow and again spun the ring of power around himself. This time the great monk did not dodge, but repelled the attack and told the man to try harder. Out of the corner of his eyes, Mu Young noticed a movement on the right. A white ghost was rushing headlong towards him, trying to attack while the man was busy fighting with his friend. The scoundrel managed to hit the monk with his sword, but Mu Young only swayed, pushing the parasite away. The white ghost was surprised. If this were a fight with an ordinary person, he would have lost his limbs long ago. The red-bearded man thundered in a sonorous bass. He really believed that the monk could not cope with two opponents, especially after the white ghost was able to attack the man. He again launched another energy ring at the thug and the monk deftly accepted its power. The old man in the hat was panicking. The opponents of the great monk were skilled warriors and possessed knowledge that only a chosen one could comprehend. Mu Young did not pay attention to the screams around him. The monk focused on his internal energy and froze for a moment, which could seem like an eternity to those around him. The man used the famous adamantite body technique, available only to 4 Shaolin monks. The red-bearded man knew about this legendary technique and he couldn't wait to break through the man's armor to prove his worthlessness. At the same time, the white ghost admired the monk's skill. Just a few movements with his hands gave the man previously unimaginable power. His strength was worthy of admiration. The bald man attacked again. He was not original and was stubborn in choosing his most powerful technique to attack the enemy. Mu Young was detached from the world, focusing on his chi. The man was calm, and his aura shone brightly. The executioner's attack was a futile waste of energy. The ring of power shattered on the monk's aura and scattered into small sparks. The bald man was puzzled. He had seen this for the first time and understood that the man's invulnerability would become a big problem for his plans. Mu Young looked carefully at the opponents and said that both of them are weak and do not match his strength. It is best for the bandits to surrender now. He pointed his finger at the red-bearded man, warning the man that Hwi Young would not forgive the bald man for destroying his house, and if he caught him, the executioner would lose his head. If the thugs surrender, the monk guarantees that he can save their lives. The red-bearded man got angry. He didn't understand who this Yeon Hwi Chon was, about whom everyone was talking so much today. This irritated the man. The old man treated Myung-go, and hearing the words of his companion raised his head in amazement. How strong must this man be? If one of the 4 Shaolin speaks of him like that, probably Hwi Chon's strength is really great. The bald man rushed at the monk, saying that he only hears about Hwi Chon today, as much as one can talk about someone so unremarkable that the bandit doesn't even know him. The man launched another energy disc at Mu Young, this time seasoned with the executioner's irritation. The monk repelled the attack, although the blow was really powerful and Mu Young had to cover himself from the disc with both hands. The red-bearded man turned out to be a stubborn opponent, and even without causing significant damage, he confidently stood opposite the monk. Now the man was already angry with Yeon Hwi Chon and dreamed that this man would get in his way, then the executioner would show the arrogant insolent which of them was truly a dangerous pepper. The monk saw the bald man's condition, but told his rival that he could not speak for the bandit, but even for a great Shaolin monk this guy could be a threat. Hwi Chon seemed to the giant to be a very skillful and well-trained warrior, who adopted the experience of an equally strong mentor and matured.
Didn't even get to cross.
Meanwhile, the hero's training was coming to an end. According to the guy, an eternity had passed, but in fact, only a few hours. Hwi Chon mastered strength practices, during which his bones were broken and transformed into something more perfect. The exercises of the second part of the training were closer to spiritual growth. Here it was necessary to devote a lot of time to meditation and the ability to concentrate. The man was a diligent student and mastered knowledge with the ease inherent in his life. The knowledge that he received in the cave was firmly absorbed into his mind. Hwi Chon felt how his strength increased. The hero combined in himself everything that the Great Spirit could convey and became a powerful warrior. Mu-young continued to fight the dishonest executioner, who ordered the destruction of the Blue Dragon Squad and tortured the people of the Yeon village. Possessing enormous strength, the monk inflicted strong blows on the enemy, but the red-bearded man was agile and often dodged them, provoking his opponent. Pulling out his sword behind his back, the bald demon was about to attack the great Shaolin monk. The man waved his sword, cutting through the air. He was sure that luck was on his side, because so far the giant had not caused significant damage to the executioner. However, Mu-young repelled the red-bearded man's attack with his powerful fist, and the bald demon flew into the sky. Somersaulting in the air, the executioner did not understand how the giant was able to see the attack from above. In his opinion, the strong man was very clumsy. The red-bearded man landed on the ground and looked displeasedly towards the enemy. The man did not notice anything legendary in the monk. He began to furiously threaten those present, hoping to intimidate the warrior and his friends, but it was difficult. The monk decided not to delay and used his energy to its fullest. It seemed to the red-bearded man that the man had several extra arms. Having put all his power into the blow, the great monk attacked the enemy again, but at the last moment the executioner dodged. The red-bearded man kept repeating that Mu-young is clumsy and slow, and this does not do him any honor. Rumors exaggerate the monk's power. The bald man wanted to use his sword again, but his hand was intercepted by the enemy's huge palm. The thug turned the executioner to face him and swung his hand for another blow. Sparks fell from the red-bearded man's eyes. The blow was powerful, but the man remained conscious. He wanted to jump away from his opponent, but Mu-young caught his hand again and told him not to rush to escape, because they weren't finished yet. The monk used a striking technique, which inflicted maximum damage on the red beard. The man flew to the side, combing the ground with his body, but still did not give up hope of defeating the giant. A white ghost ran up to the bald man. He wanted to make sure that his teacher was still alive. The monk took a fighting stance and asked the enemy if he had changed his opinion about the man's battle tactics. The ghost helped the red-beard get up, and the executioner hissed that the enemy was getting on his nerves. Watching the mutilated men, Mu-young asked why they had come to the village and caused havoc. The great monk believed that this was the end of their battle with the red-beard and the enemy would not dare to fight further. The red-bearded man was arrogant and touchy. He did not want to tell about his affairs to the man who defeated him in battle. The grandfather in the hat realized that it would be difficult to get words out of the bandits and was going to send a dove with a message to Murim. As soon as the bird flew a few meters, something strange happened and it fell to the ground like a stone. The travelers stared in amazement in the direction where the dove landed. They were surprised to see Yeon Hwi Chon. Watching the amazed looks of the men, the townspeople also began to turn towards the stranger who stood behind them. The old man picked up the bird from the ground and said that he was flattered by the attention of the men. The warrior did not expect that he would be recognized so quickly. He noticed that the travelers made the right decision, asking for advice regarding what happened from the chief Murim. The townspeople looked at the strange man with surprise. Then he extended his hand with a long nail to one of the residents of the settlement, and told those around him to carefully watch what was about to happen. The man's head suddenly exploded into small pieces, causing screams of horror from those standing near him. The bandits stared in awe at the old man who appeared. It was clear from them that the men bowed to his skill. The white moon looked at the thugs with disdain. He was dissatisfied that the men failed to cope with the task and he had to join the game. The man angrily squeezes the bird and is indignant that the bandits failed the simplest task. The bird flies to smithereens. He accuses his subordinates of the fact that these nonentities disgrace the reputation of their master. The great monk watched in surprise what was happening. This old man had developed his skills to the maximum. He would be a more dangerous opponent than the red-bearded one. Mu Young asked his companion for a stick, and the grandfather instantly realized why the monk needed the tool. The man caught the stick on the fly and made several movements with it, preparing for battle. The enemy confidently advances on the giant and notes that the monk is too annoying. Mu Young points the gun towards the white moon. He is ready to fight a strong opponent. The man grins as he watches the monk's actions. He does not see Mu Young as a threat to himself. Right in front of the white moon's face, he stops the stick that the monk swung at him. This was not difficult for him. The great monk watches in shock as the stick is engulfed in energy. He has never seen anything like this before. Taking advantage of the enemy's stupor, the old man seizes the initiative and shoots energy through the stick towards the monk. Mu Young looks in surprise as the stick begins to collapse in his hands, and the man cannot move it. Suddenly the weapon flares up and explodes, colored by the old man's poisonous energy. A white ghost attacks the monk from behind. The man does not see this and continues to defend himself from the old man. The companion shouted a warning about the attack. Sweat rolls down the face of the old man in the hat. He is worried about his friend. However, the giant did not have time to react and receives a blow with a sword along his back. The monk screams with anger and dissatisfaction. He did not foresee that the bandits would continue to play their dishonest tricks. With a roundhouse, he hits the man in the white mask in the face and breaks it in the same way as before he broke the mask of his black twin. The thug flies several meters and falls to the ground with a roar. The monk feels very tired. Almost his entire reserve has been exhausted. He touches the ground to regain his balance. The white moon sees that his opponent is exhausted and mocks him. He did not consider the monk a worthy opponent before. The grandfather in the hat also cannot hide his surprise. For the first time he sees how one of the great Shaolin monks was so boldly and recklessly snuck up from behind. Mu Young realizes that he will not be able to resist the new enemy and calls on his friends and villagers to escape as quickly as possible. He dared to take the final blow in the hope of buying people some time and is ready to sacrifice himself to save them. Headlong, the townspeople begin to run, looking back with curiosity, but without stopping their movements. Hwa Young remains behind the people, bending over the body of her father-in-law, the head of the settlement. The girl does not know what to do. Suddenly, a seemingly strong hand grabs Hwa Young's hair and pulls her back forcefully, causing discomfort. It was the red-bearded man who came to his senses. The man decided to continue torturing the girl and hands her a bottle of parasites. The white moon realizes that the monk's actions are his last push before the inevitable. He grins and wishes the man luck in his attempt. The old man raises his index finger with a long, needle-shaped nail and says that he always wanted to know how resistant the Shaolin monks are to his poison. He immediately puts his threat into action by pointing his hand towards the opponent. The great monk puts up a shield, covering his chest with his hands, but this does not save him from multiple injections. The skin on the man's hands becomes inflamed and swells, as if after a wasp sting. Mu Young experiences incredible agony from the poison that enters his body through these injections. The white moon says that he heard about the endurance of the Shaolin monks and the giant copes well with the poison in his blood, but everything is not so simple and the effects of the poison are long-lasting. The old man begins to count, 1, 2, 3, the injection sites swell, the man can barely restrain a cry of pain. The great monk understands that a little more and his body will be torn apart in terrible agony. Drops of sweat flow down his face. Suddenly, someone pours a powerful stream of vital energy into his body from behind. Young cannot believe that he is saved. The giant's body is being cleansed of poison. The man literally glows from the inside while this process is going on. The old man and the blue dragon captain look in amazement at what is happening to their friend. The white moon is dissatisfied. He was going to enjoy the torment of the monk, but an unknown person disrupted his plans. Young's body releases all the intoxication that his opponent subjected him to. The monk feels very tired and exhales with relief. The red-bearded man is surprised by how the most terrible poison known to him was neutralized, and Young recognizes his husband in the face of the stranger. Feeling better, the monk turns around to understand what happened and sees a stranger behind him. But Hwi Chon does not answer the giant. His gaze is directed at the old man. The hero asks the white moon if he is the one who destroyed the settlement. The old man looks forward in bewilderment. The stranger is angry. The fire of retribution burns in his eyes, and everyone who was involved in what happened is unlikely to survive.
Didn't even get to bronze.
In his peripheral vision, Young sees the figure of his father, who is lying on the ground and not moving. The hero ceases to control his emotions. The power around him spreads like a thundercloud. Travelers from Urim are stunned by the strength and power such a young man has. The aura of an incredible killer glows around the guy. Even the white moon is impressed by the power the stranger has. He was able to intrigue the old man, who had seen and defeated many strong warriors. But the strength of a guy is not a sufficient argument for a man. He considers himself indestructible, and the technique of his mastery is ideal for defeating any enemy. Members of the Moon Clan, to which the elder belongs, are known for combining martial arts with witchcraft, and they also absorb toxins from poisonous reptiles and even mushrooms to later use in battle. This clan's methods are truly cruel, and because of the old man's special skills, he is often called the Poison Demon. The White Moon prepared for battle. He already wanted to use his talents on this boy who appeared on the battlefield at the wrong time. The man swung his hand towards the hero, and a poisonous snake flew out of his sleeve. She tightly grabbed the guy's hand in a ring, but Young didn't even look surprised. He was just furious. Several poisonous magical cobras had already flown from the other arm of the white moon. The snakes had sparkling eyes and hissed in flight, as if they were real. The old man in the hat opened his mouth in surprise. Watching the attack of the poisonous demon, he knew about this technique, when from the bite of one of the 3 snakes, a person dies in 3 stages. Cobras attacked Hwi Chon from different sides, and the guy began to defend himself from their bites. Just a few swings of his hands, and 2 snakes fell at the guy's feet, cut in half. It was impressive. However, the 3rd snake sank its sharp teeth into the guy's hand. The hero did not even notice how this happened. The red-bearded man whispered in Young's ear that the guy had found his end. No one had ever been saved from the bite of such a cobra. With effort, Hwi Chon pulled out the long fangs of the viper from his wrist, blood gushing from the wound. The man was angry and tore his familiar in half without resorting to a weapon. Meanwhile, the white moon decided that it was time to attack the boy from behind in order to speed up the process of his death. The old man again used his signature technique, which made it possible to combine martial arts with poisons. Hwi Chon was wounded in the shoulder, thigh, and leg. The guy staggered, but was able to stand in place. The enemy grinned and showed his long sharp nail. The old man told the guy that even a drop of poison entering the body would immediately kill him. The great monk was indignant at such a perverted technique. He did not recognize dishonest methods of fighting. Meanwhile, the poison had already begun its effect on the hero. He grabbed his head and groaned from the wild pain that spread throughout his body. The guy remembered that Hori's bottle contained all the poisons that exist in the world. During his training, the hero learned to work with poisons, dividing them into components and taking them, so he already knew all the pain that could arise from poisoning with anything. The guy knew that severe pain could not be avoided. He trained for this for almost 50 years. The only effective way to dull the agony is to endure the pain. When the second phase begins and the next poison enters the body, it itself neutralizes the effect of the first. Everyone who practices demonic martial arts with poisons is not susceptible to poisons, but not to their digestion by the body. Hwi Chon has overcome the side effects and regained control of his body. No poison can kill him, but no one knows about it. With all his might, the guy hit the old man in the jaw, and he flew several meters away, surprised by such agility of the unknown. The White Moon wanted to know what martial arts the young man was trained in, since the poisonous demon technique did not cause him any damage. But Hwi Chon was not in the mood to talk with the scoundrel who tried to kill him in such a vile way, so he decided to end this fight as soon as possible. The guy used the technique of 100 demonic fists, directing their blows across the man's entire body. The old man was beaten thoroughly by these fists, but he was still able not only to fight, but also to provoke the guy with words. In fact, the damage from the fists was noticeable, but the White Moon was not going to lose to some youngster. He just didn't understand how the guy had the strength to perform such techniques after he was poisoned by the most powerful of poisons. Then the man decided to fight for life and death. The old man's hands were girded with steel brass knuckles with long, needle-like blades. The White Moon took a combat position in which it would be convenient for him to attack the enemy. He attacked first, but Hwi Chon managed to jump high before the old man's weapon touched the guy. But the man was persistent and patient. He carefully watched the young man and at any moment was ready to strike another blow. When Hwi Chon landed, the old man jumped up to him with lightning speed and pierced the guy's shoulder right through. The travelers watching the battle were in shock. They could not believe that the guy who had defeated the entire Dam clan could die at the hands of a poisonous demon. Hwi Chon was terrified. She had just gotten married, and so many trials had already befallen her fate. The girl understood that the loss of her husband meant the death of everyone who was now present in the village. The White Moon suddenly froze in place. He saw in front of him not a face distorted by pain, but an ordinary piece of wood. The man looked in bewilderment at the log from which he had just taken out his sharp claws. The piece of wood shimmered with energy, and the old man realized that they had just played an illusion with him. Hwi Chon stood behind the White Moon and grinned. He could attack his opponent while he did not notice him, but it was dishonest. The man turned around and made his furious strike again. This time he hoped not to miss. However, a piece of wood was again discovered under his hands. This was already beginning to anger the old man. Hwi Chon still stood calmly behind the White Moon and watched it struggle with the log. The man slowly approached the guy, who did not even think of running away, and pointed his hand with brass knuckles in his direction. Unexpectedly, the hero grabbed this hand with his own and sharply directed it at the enemy's chest. Looking at his wound, the man was surprised. After all, he was not so skilled in the practice of absorbing poisons. Being only one who can use poisons, the White Moon suffered from them as well as any of its victims. The man's body exploded and fell to the ground in front of the guy who defeated the poisonous demon. Hwi Chon thought that the techniques that Yuaji left behind are beyond the imagination of the average person, even if he practices martial arts. The guy heard Hwi Chon sob behind him. The red-bearded man held the girl tightly, covering her mouth with his huge palm. The man understood that he had never met anyone with such strength as this stranger, so he was not going to die so easily. Before he died, the bald bandit decided to take the life of the girl he was going to torture. Hwi Chon screamed in pain, and a haze of red energy from the bearded man formed around her. This sight infuriated Hwi Chon. No one had the right to touch his wife, much less harm her. The hero moved from his place to the red-bearded one like lightning. Only the stones flew off his soul from the place where the guy stood. The red executioner looked in surprise at where the sound of falling stones came from. Hwi Chon was not there. The man hoped that the stranger got scared and ran away, but the guy was simply too fast for the eyesight of an ordinary person. Concentrating, the young man threw an ordinary pebble, previously lying on the ground, at the red-bearded man. The shell hit the target. The man howled in pain when the stone wounded his forehead, but Hwi Chon hurried to quickly dodge and crawl away from her tormentor. The man fell to the ground. He was no longer causing harm, and the girl was sitting not far from him, in a state of shock. Hwi Chon slowly approached his wife. He was afraid that the scoundrel had managed to harm her and the guy might not make it in time. The Murim envoys watched in amazement as events unfolded on this battlefield. Of course, the guy noticed the presence of not only the bandits, but also the strangers who were fighting them, and asked about the reasons for their coming here. The old man in the hat was frightened by the sight of the guy and how he easily defeated two of the strongest opponents that even the great Shaolin monk could not defeat. Answered the guy Myung-go. He said that envoys were sent from Murim to investigate the case of the disappearance of the Dam clan, and asked if Hwi Chon was involved in this. The hero did not even think of hiding the fact that it was he who decided on all the scoundrels and traitors of this clan. The travelers stared at the guy in amazement. They assumed, but still could not believe in the reality of what was happening. Suddenly new voices sounded in the clearing and strangers appeared. The trio from Murim looked at them carefully. A girl and a man were approaching from the direction of the forest. They looked extremely worried. It was clear from everything that these people were in a hurry. The strangers asked if people had seen a little girl who might be running from the direction of the forest. The man looked around and discovered the bodies of a white moon, a red-bearded executioner and twin ghosts. Suddenly a little girl ran towards the woman, who was saved from wild dogs by Hwi Chon. The man and woman hugged the girl. These were her relatives. Rosso was glad to see her aunt more than anything else. The little girl talked about how Hwi Chon saved her from inevitable disaster. Aunt Rosso took off her mask and looked carefully at the young woman with a scar on her face. The girl introduced herself as Moon Ji from the Tower of the Four Emperors and thanked Hwi Chon for saving her niece. The old man in the hat knew who Moon Ji was. She was the princess of the clan. After thinking a little, the man realized that the baby was the daughter of the eldest prince Moon Gak. The elder also realized that in this clan there is now a struggle for power, which is why people from one clan tried to kidnap the child. The first and second princes are now fighting for the right to lead the clan, and their battle is quite serious. The princess noticed that the village had suffered losses due to their internal squabbles and promised to return to discuss compensation for the damage. These words infuriated Hwi Chon, who just pulled himself together. He said that they could not compensate for innocent lives. The man who came with Moon Ji asked the guy to be more polite when he spoke to the ruler's daughter, but the hero didn't care. He approached the stranger and grabbed him by the throat in a fit of rage. The man coughed. Hwi Chon asked the old man why he should show respect if their people came and massacred the guy's house. Suddenly, the hero heard the thin voice of the young Princess Rosso. It was unexpected. The girl asked for forgiveness. Wiping away tears, the little girl said that it was because of her that those men came to the village, killed innocent people and started a pogrom. She sincerely asked to forgive her. Hwi Chon released his fingers, which he had been squeezing the stranger's throat with, and he lost his balance. While the man was coming to his senses, the hero already knew what he would say to this trio from the castle. The guy told the strangers to get out, and anyone who sets foot on the territory of the settlement without his permission will know no mercy from now on. The whole trio bowed their heads, and the travelers once again asked Hwi Chon for forgiveness. Then, the girl picked up the baby in her arms, and the trio soared up, disappearing from the village of Yeon. The guy heard the old man in the hat muttering that interfering in the battle between the two princes promises to be a big problem for everyone. Moreover, two of the second's most powerful henchmen fell at the hands of Hwi Chon. This will certainly anger their master and he will come to take revenge. The hero turned to the man and seriously asked if he had now begun to worry about their village, or if he had simply decided to clear his mouth. The old man did not understand why the young man considered his words a mockery. He simply stated a fact. Then Hwi Chon continued his speech. He said that since Murim is the universally recognized cradle and judge of martial arts followers, but does not intend to help those who suffer from them, is this not sarcasm? The great monk intervened in their conversation. He said that this particular village was not the direct heritage and controlled territory of Murim, therefore intervention would be difficult. The guy said that in this case, the Dam clan, known for its atrocities, deserved what happened to it, if we use the monk's logic. But in fact, Hwi Chon wondered if Murim, by reasoning like this, could claim to be a judge in the world of martial arts. The blue dragon sword intervened in the conversation between the men and asked them not to insult Murim. However, no one could stop the flow of Hwi Chon's words. He reminded those present of the brutal murder of a woman that happened 3 years ago. She was not only killed, but also subjected to cruel torture, and the eldest son of the Dam family was involved in all this, who did not receive any punishment for his act. He explained to everyone that it was just an accident, and he got away with everything. The hero asked if Murim should then be puzzled by the situation and investigate the matter. The husband of that woman and the witness who testified about what happened were also killed, and the case was quickly hushed up. The old man in the hat was shocked by the information that the guy had. No one could know this, but Hwi Chon knew. The hero was angry. He accused Murim of inaction and said that if they only protect the welfare of prestigious families, the alliance cannot claim to be a judge. The travelers became thoughtful and depressed. The guy was telling the truth. They themselves now shared his opinion. Hwi Chon said that if men are not going to force him to change his mind, then it would be better for them to back off and not tell the guy what to do. He promised to visit the Murim alliance when the right moment came. The travelers stared in horror at the hero's face, full of righteous anger. They could not believe that Hwi Chon was going to personally arrive in Murim. The great monk folded his hands in front of him and stated that the information had been obtained and would be transmitted. It was time for them to leave. The men set off on their journey, leaving Hwi Chon with his wife and the semi-ruined village behind. Myung-go found it difficult to leave the woman he loved so deeply once again, but this time, there was nothing he could do. The old man in the hat glanced back at Hwi Chon. This young man was not an ordinary townsman and was far from a naive person. Wisdom of centuries reflected in the hero's eyes, and his actions in battle seemed honed by hundreds of years of training. It was best not to be his enemy, for the young man could become a formidable threat. Meanwhile, the princess and her entourage reached the province of Sivan, to its main mountain. The residence of the first son was lit up. The entire house was in turmoil because of the missing girl. The sister brought the girl to her father. Rosso was happy that she had survived and could embrace her dad again. The man couldn't take his eyes off his daughter. He had already envisioned the worst scenarios, and seeing Rosso alive and unharmed was a gift from the gods. The girl told the first prince how she was saved by a woman and a man in the mountain province, and the heir was very grateful to these people for saving his treasure. The man told his sister that they needed to take care of a reward for these people, and the princess suggested that her brother should be generous in this case. The prince was surprised. He didn't understand what his sister meant by being generous to ordinary laborers. Then the girl explained that the man, the prince, was grateful to have defeated the White Moon and the red-bearded executioner. The power bestowed upon the young man shocked the prince. After this revelation, the heir was even more eager to meet the hero. The girl remarked that the second brother would send strong warriors to the village to avenge their favorites and suggested stopping him. However, the prince rejected her proposal. The man realized how dangerous an opponent this person could be. The heir suggested taking the position of an observer, and if the hero survived, his reward would be much greater than originally planned for saving Rosso. The girl was a bit puzzled by the reasoning of the first prince, but she dared not argue with her elder brother and bowed her head before him. In the quarters of the second prince, no one was sleeping either. The man was beside himself with anger. The first one to face the consequences was the messenger of bad news. He struck the servant with a sledgehammer, and he fell to the floor. The man was outraged, instilling horror in his subordinates. He couldn't understand how some townsmen could defeat his best men, and why they were incapable of catching a mere girl. The second prince was terrifying in his anger. He was out of control, and this was the moment when he couldn't help but be furious. He decided to vent his anger on the servants, expressing his dissatisfaction with what was happening and beating them with available means. He gave orders for his men to go immediately to that settlement and bring the head of the scoundrel who dared to stand in the way to the throne. Over the village, a full red moon hung. The houses of the inhabitants smoldered, and only the wind could be heard. Hwi Chon sat on his knees by the hill, where he had just bid farewell to his father. The young man felt deep sorrow over the death of the only close person he loved and respected. The young man wanted to protect his village and its people. He understood that now he could do it because he possessed unimaginable power. Out of despair, the hero's hands trembled. He was angry at himself for not being able to protect his father. Hwa Yun approached her husband. The girl wanted to be a support for the man in these difficult circumstances. The wife informed him that locals were looking for him. Those who returned from the hunt needed him to tell about what had happened in the village, and only the heir to the head could do it properly. Hwi Chon, of course, understood that the locals were now in confusion, especially those who did not see all the horrors that his dear wife had endured. He agreed with the woman's arguments. The villagers fully trusted Hwi Chon's father. The elder had tremendous authority among his people. The girl burst into tears, blaming herself for what happened to her father and their village. If it weren't for her actions, if she hadn't decided to save the little girl, everything would be different. The man quietly approached and hugged Hwa Yun. He began to comfort her, repeating that she was not to blame for what happened. Bandits would have come to the village regardless of the original cause. The hero noticed Hwa Yun's broken fingers and was horrified. He got a very resilient woman. Even with broken fingers, she thinks about other people, not crying from pain. Hwi Chon told his wife to use a small green ball to treat her wounds. Hwa Yun decided that he was suggesting she use a clump of moss and was surprised. And it really turned out to be moss, only very old. The girl held it in her hands and realized that the clump was impregnated with energy, mystical water. Her husband said that this remedy heals pain and wounds. The girl put the clump in her throat, quickly chewed it, and swallowed. It didn't taste pleasant, and the clump had a specific smell. Suddenly, Hwa Yun felt invigorating energy spreading throughout her body, and her body completely recovered. It was incredible. Her hands and body began to emit a green light. Hwa Yun was in a state of shock. She was scared of the changes, even though she understood that they were not harmful to her. In the girl's eyes, bright green flashes sparkled. Her body filled with warmth, and a little more, and she could lose consciousness from shock. The energy from the consumed treat gradually faded, and the wounds on the girl's face caused slight discomfort, stinging, flickering, and disappearing along with the green energy. The girl was still amazed at what was happening and shockingly looked at her husband. He said for the wife to touch her face because the scars that had caused her discomfort for many years had disappeared. Hwi Chon brought her hand to her cheek and tried for a long time to feel her scar. The skin was as smooth as a baby's. The girl could not believe this miracle. Overjoyed, the girl burst into tears. The deep scars were gone. She thought she would live her whole life with those marks. Hwi Chon became curious about where he got this precious moss. To which the hero replied that he obtained the item in the same magical cave where he gained his unparalleled knowledge and skills. The man noticed that now their village was not a safe place. Many would want to attack them, take revenge, and simply plunder. He explained that it was necessary to appoint a good leader who could give people maximum protection in the hero's absence, and Hwi Chon asked whom he planned to choose for this role. Hwi Chon talked about how he had long thought about his decision. He sees no one else but her, his wife, as the ruler of the village, so they can share responsibilities and lead everything together. Hwi Chon could not imagine herself as a ruler, and how could a woman manage a village in her husband's absence? The young woman was worried and just wanted to tell her thoughts to her husband when he said that she would also have to undergo training in the caves. The hero asked what the girl thought about this option, whether she was ready to become stronger to protect her home and people from villains. Hwi Chon agreed. She knew that her husband was a fair man, and if he says she needs to become the leader of the settlement, it will be the best solution. The man picked up his wife and asked her to hold on to him tightly because now he could move through the air. Pushing off the ground, Hwi Chon soared above the edge of the forest where they were talking. The sensations from flight were incredible. Hwi Chon experienced something like this for the first time, and by her side was someone who would never let her be harmed. She was sure of that. The couple, surrounded by energy streams, flew over the treetops and the mountain ridge. Hwi Chon showed the girl a lake where no fish could live because of the poison in its water, and he talked about his ideas for the water reservoir. Like he did before, but now with his wife in his arms, the young man jumped into the water to reach the opposite side of the lake. On the shore, the man stood the surprised Hwi Chon on her feet. She did not expect their journey to be so unusual. The girl looked around, studying the terrain, but the hero called her to follow him into the caves. The girl completely trusted her husband, confidently following in his footsteps and looking around. Hwi Chon led her to the monument where he had seen that same stone, sanctified by the owner. With amazement, Hwi Chon looked around. She was in such a place for the first time, and everything new was interesting to her. The young man began his story about how these stone boxes store the secrets of unparalleled martial arts masters, and these knowledge are invaluable. He explained that thanks to this place, he was able to learn the best martial arts skills of all time. After a long period of grueling training, Hwi Chon became the possessor of Iwaja martial arts knowledge. His wife began to calculate his age. By 27 years, she added 120 years of training. It turns out, her husband was 147 years old. How could this happen? The man suppressed a smile. He continued his story, explaining that time flows differently in the cave, and 60 years here are equal to 2 hours in their native world. If you plant medicinal plants here, then after 2 days, you can harvest a ready crop. This means you can quickly grow herbs from 1,000 years ago. The girl was thrilled. It was truly a magical place. Hwi Chon became curious about what martial arts she could study. The man pulled out a stack of books. He thought she didn't need to learn everything because there is too much knowledge for one person. Hwi Chon suggested studying the practice of martial arts and mastering the skill of optical illusions. The girl was eager. She wanted to absorb all this rare knowledge to become truly useful to the husband who trusted her. Hwi Chon asked his wife to take a book and enter the cave. the girl was a little scared and asked if they wouldn't practice together. Yeon Hwi Chon pointed with his finger and explained that the training zones were divided, and they would meet in 60 years. The wife was upset. She didn't want to return as an old woman. However, Yeon took the necessary books with her and slowly entered the cave to start her own path. Her thoughtful gaze was accompanied by her husband, who believed that the girl would be able to learn and come out to him in a few hours. Also, the young man pondered. He remembered that he wanted to improve some of his skills. Hwi Chon was not a fencing master, but he should teach the townspeople this skill, so he would have to brush up on his knowledge in this matter. The hero followed into the cave after his wife, as he also had training ahead, training necessary for the survival of their settlement. In the main building of Murim, respected members of the alliance gathered, all waiting for news about what had really happened to the Dam clan and if there was cause for concern. The elders from the Council of Nine loudly discussed the events in the Yeon village and how strong Hwi Chon really was. Someone suggested arresting him, someone wanted to eliminate the threat, and others were thinking about a tracking beacon. The hall was filled with a storm of voices. The head of the council grew tired of everyone talking over each other and loudly knocked on the wooden table to get attention. Wombo suggested not making hasty decisions and not building assumptions before they reviewed the report of the team sent for data collection and reconnaissance. The man asked the travelers who arrived from the Yeon village, witnesses to what had happened, to enter. Baek Jin was surprised when only 2 entered the hall, and he did not see Myung go among them, about which he immediately inquired from those who entered. The old man in the hat replied that the blue dragon's sword had suffered significant damage and had wounds that forced him to seek medical help. Then the council switched to its main question: who is Yeon Hwi Chon? And the great monk was asked to answer. Yeon told everything he noticed while observing the young man and about how his skills are comparable in power to the strongest of Murim's elders. The monk also shared his observations. The vice leader of Murim asked if the warrior had determined which type of martial arts predominates in Hwi Chon's actions. And the giant's answer surprised everyone present because Hwi Chon's technique combines all known martial arts. The monk explained his words, telling how the boy defeated those who came with malicious intent to his village, and the elders were surprised to hear about the 4 Emperors clan. The old man in the hat confirmed the monk's words and added that a war for the title of the clan leader had begun in that clan, and this conflict could become a serious problem if it goes beyond their family squabbles. The saddest fact from this is the death of the warriors of the Blue Dragon clan at the hands of ghost twins. This situation can already be considered extraordinary and dangerous. The dragon leader himself also received injuries in a clash with these warriors. They almost destroyed the great Shaolin monk. Everything ended well for the travelers only thanks to Hwi Chon's intervention. The monk was grateful to the boy for help and the opportunity to save lives, confirming every word of his companion. However, the men were still outraged that Hwi Chon ignored Murim's directive regarding him, and they wanted to teach the young upstart a lesson. However, Yeon stepped in to defend the boy, much to the surprise of his comrades. The warrior simply knew that the young lad also intended to come to Murim. This is what he explained to those present, justifying the delay in arrival with problems in the 4 Emperors clan. The leader was astonished by what he heard from the monk. Apparently, the lad was not only strong but also very self-assured, deciding to dictate his terms to the alliance. The first half of the manhwa is completed. Further, even more dynamic battles and plot twists await us. Let's get 100 likes on this video and then I will continue working on the second half of this manhwa. Write in the comments what you liked and what you didn't. You can also write the name of the manhwa that you would like me to retell. Thank you for subscribing to the channel.